call, please.
Mr. Cerrone,
Here.
Dr. Martin,
Here.
Dr. Murillo,
Here.
Dr. Polak,
Here.
Miss Robinson,
Present.
Miss C,
Here.
Miss Wedma.
Present.
Let's all stand for the pledge.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I should probably assure everybody that my voice is just from yelling at the football game on Saturday. It's not, I'm not sick, okay? So, all right. We have a new student board member and new alternate today. We are proud to welcome our new Oswego High School student board member, Sahara Sahir, and student alternate, Nal Karam. Your willingness to serve in these roles reflects the strength, leadership, and passion of our students. The voices of our students are truly integral to the work we do, and we look forward to learning from your perspectives as we continue shaping the future of SD308 together. Welcome to the team, and thank you. Yeah, thank you for your time. And now, 4.1, our Pride recognition.
All right, we are here tonight to recognize some Pride Award winners from the following schools: Eastview Academy, Prairie Point Elementary, South Ferry Elementary, and Oswego High School. This is for the month of October. The Pride stands for proudly recognizing individuals demonstrating excellence. The Board of Education began this program 10 years ago to recognize, promote, and celebrate the many contributions made by teachers and employees across our great district. We would like to thank our generous district partners who support this program, which is presented by ServBank and supported by donations from Chick-fil-A, Culver's, Imagination Print and Design, Huntington Learning Center, The Scoop, KCT Credit Union, Texas Roadhouse, and 113 Main. Your contributions make this program successful. We would also like to thank all of those who nominated individuals for consideration. Each nominee has been recognized with a certificate. Awardees, after your name is called and we share your nomination, please come forward to be congratulated by the Board of Education and Dr. Kilgotti. And then also stay up front until the rest of the individuals from your school have been called up. First of all, we have Eastview Academy, starting with Sarah Glendy. Sarah displays an unwavering commitment to both her students and colleagues, approaching every challenge with professionalism, grace, and a desire to make a difference. She is passionate about her role as a teacher and shares positive attitudes that uplift those around her. One of her nominators shared, Sarah is not only a trusted colleague, but also a role model whose hard work and kindness make our school community stronger. Congratulations, Sarah. Next, we have Marvina Allen. Marvina has a talent for building rapport with her students, ensuring that they feel valued, supported, and understood. In addition, she is highly collaborative with her colleagues and always willing to help wherever needed. A nominator stated, she is one of the first friendly faces to greet students each and every morning, helping them start their day on a positive note and with a smile. Congratulations, Marvina. And next up from Eastview is Brooke Sloan. Brooke is passionate about the work she does, and it shows. She approaches every situation with a student-centered mindset, and her positive composure always shines through. As shared by one nominator, Ms. Sloan collaborates closely with her colleagues to problem solve and share ideas and strategies that support student success. Congratulations, Brooke. All right, at this time, any building administrators, please come on up. Mrs. Salkson, come on forward for a group picture. All right, one final round of applause for Eastview Academy. Our next spotlight is Prairie Point Elementary School. First, we have Carrie Rothman. Loved by both her students and their families, Carrie is a caring and enthusiastic teacher. She fosters an environment where students come out of their shells to find their strengths. As one parent shared, she embodies everything you would want in a teacher and truly shares her passion for learning with everyone around her. Congratulations, Carrie. Next up, we have Christina Tibbles. Christina finds value in building relationships and strives daily to support students. Everyone in her building appreciates her care for others and knows they can truly trust her. One nominator stated, Prairie Point is a better place to be because she is found throughout it, each day supporting both students and staff. Congratulations, Christina. And finally from Prairie Point, Josie Marcus. She is not here, but we'll still let's give her a round of applause. Josie truly makes a difference in students' lives. One parent shared that previously their child was hesitant about going to school, but this year he wakes up every morning excited to see his teacher and get to Prairie Point. This parent shared, quote, she sees our child for who he is, believes in his potential, and advocates for him in every way. Congratulations, Josie. And now we would like Mrs. Lund to come on up for a picture with everybody from Prairie Point. All right, thank you, Prairie Point. Our next school is Southbury Elementary School. First of all, Christine Victorine. Christine fosters a learning environment of growth and ensures each of her students has the unique tools they need to succeed. Beyond the classroom, she is heavily involved in the community. As shared by a nominator, I have heard a parent say that no other teacher has cared for her child like Miss Victorine has. Congratulations, Christine. Next up, Michelle Bailey. Michelle takes the time to understand her students, focusing on their strengths, struggles, and what makes them shine. Students who had her as a teacher years ago recall her kind personality. In addition to her commitment to her students, a parent said she connects with parents just as thoughtfully when offering support and feedback that makes us feel like we are part of her team. Congratulations, Michelle. And next up, we have Tess Tusaki. Tess's passion for teaching and learning is contagious. Her thoughtful guidance and words of encouragement make everyone feel seen, heard, and respected. A nominator said, Teresa is more than a mentor. She is a role model, a steady source of encouragement, and a true advocate for those lucky enough to work with her. Congratulations, Tess. And now we need Miss Decker to come on up. Let's hear it one more time for your Sharks. Oh, there's another picture. Thank you, Southbury. And for our final celebrating building tonight, we celebrate Oswego High School. First of all, we have Iron Herrera. Mr. Herrera knows how to connect well with his students while making sure they all feel supported. He even spends his mornings before school in his classroom so students have a safe and welcoming place to congregate. One nominator shared, Iram is dedicated to our students and deserves to be recognized for the time and energy he puts into being more than just a teacher. Congratulations. Next up, we have Kristen Anderson. Kristen is accommodating to all of her students' needs. She strives to ensure her students have a firm grasp on what she's teaching and is quick to offer extra support when needed. As highlighted by a nominator, she is a safe space for many students to go and is overall just an amazing person and teacher. Congratulations, Kristen. Next up, we have Adam Jensen. Adam makes learning fun. His students find him to be helpful, a good listener, and easy to talk to. A nominator shared, his enthusiasm for teaching and genuine care for others inspires those around him to do their best and work hard. Congratulations, Adam. Next up, we have Keith Sternad. Keith cares about his students and their best interests. He has played an integral role in providing students the opportunity to learn American Sign Language while also taking on a special part in the local deaf and hard of hearing community. One nominator stated, Mr. Sternad has genuinely been the most caring, outgoing, patient, friendly, and helpful teacher I have ever met. Congratulations, Keith. And finally, we have Tim Lisney. Tim's work behind the scenes at OHS, tackling a variety of maintenance requests throughout the building. He goes through every day with a great attitude and a smile. He demonstrates a strong commitment to preventative maintenance, often identifying and addressing potential problems before they escalate. Congratulations, Tim. And now we need Principal Grays to come on up for a OHS photo. All right, congratulations, OHS. We would like to recognize and celebrate all of these amazing staff one last time. Honorees, please proceed out into the hall, gathering at the landing of the stairs for one large group photo. Thank you to all the families and colleagues who have been here tonight and who have nominated our great staff. The next round of Pride Awards will be open for nominations starting December 8th.
As they close out, I want to thank the communications team and Mr. Francis. One thing you did not hear tonight is just how excited the students were. Every single classroom, so for the board, every classroom that we went or space, students were just overjoyed. And I just have to say that it was such a moment of pride for every one of the students, whether it was in first grade all the way through. So just, again, just reiterating how important it is to recognize the power of our staff and really changing the lives of our students. So again, thank you, board, for this time, and to our communications team for organizing all the various intricate details.
5.1, action item, approval of district administrator contract. Can I have a motion, please?
You can in just a second.
Sure.
I make a motion to approve the district administrator contract as discussed and presented.
Second.
Any discussion? No?
Dr. Martin,
Aye.
Miss Winmouth,
Aye.
Miss Robinson,
Aye.
Miss C,
Aye.
Dr. Murillo,
Aye.
Mr. Saron,
Aye.
Dr. Polak.
Aye.
Motion passes 7-0. 6.1. Superintendent's comment.
Okay, and with that, we want to welcome to the team. Mr. Obafemi, do you want? Oh, are you, please, do you want to stand and be recognized? Okay. We'll get it together. Welcome to the community. Congratulations.
It brings me great pleasure to introduce you to Nicole Magana as the recommended candidate for the newly created comptroller position under the supervision of our CFO, Mr. Raphael Obafemi. Nicole brings over 20 years of accounting and financial management experience in both the public and private sectors. She currently serves as an accounting manager at Jones Lang LaSalle, overseeing financial reporting, accounts payable, accounts receivable operations, and general ledger integrity. Nicole is known for her leadership, integrity, and analytical expertise. References describe her as supportive, communicative, and solution-oriented, someone who leads by example, promotes collaboration, and continuously seeks process improvement. Nicole embodies both the technical acumen and leadership integrity essential for this critical role. Her experience, coupled with her strong analytical and interpersonal skills, align directly with the goals and standards of SD308 and make her the recommended candidate for the controller position and an asset to the district's financial leadership team. Welcome, Nicole.
Yeah, welcome. Thank you.
Okay.
6.1.
Yes, good evening, board. Thank you for the opportunity to share some highlights. I do find that as with every moment, I've been getting more and more great news over the last 48 hours. So just to start with some history of making moments, we've got first and foremost this past weekend, our IHSA State Swim and Dive Championship happened in Oswego East. Katie Mom set a new state scoring record of 515.75 and is the back-to-back state dive champion. That's a big deal. We also had our Oswego Panther football team who is heading to the IHSA 8A state semifinals for the first time in school history. This will be hosted here in that we're hosting the final, the next playoff game here in our field. So just to be clear, it's not the first time they've been there. It's the first time we get to host it here locally. And we'll be taking on the Panthers at 5 p.m. on Saturday, November 22nd. So come out for the big game. At the end of October, I did want to take a moment. Many members of our community, and I grew up and I lived in Kenya for many years. So I fondly remember this holiday, which is Diwali, which is the Festival of Lights. And so at our last board meeting, it was a public forum, so I didn't have traditional public comments, but I did want to recognize and celebrate that. It's a tradition where there's a lot of light involved in time of celebration, and it's celebrated throughout the world, actually. It's a really important celebration. So I just want to thank and appreciate all of our community who celebrate Diwali. As you all know, that in lieu of our regular Board of Education meeting, 2 weeks ago, the board hosted its public forum at Plank Junior High School. It was a outstanding evening to really hear the voices of community members who came out, both online. We had a very robust Zoom space and in person to share their reflections on a variety of topics. We were encouraged by the questions. Such an important time to be able to reflect on what's happening in our community, the important things that are coming up. Last week, our schools did just such an incredible job. If you had a chance to participate in the Veterans Day activities, I'm always humbled by the dedication and service of our veterans, those who have served and in this way. And we want to extend a huge appreciation to our schools and our students for taking and making time to really honor our veterans. That act of service for our country for our vision of a really unified and diverse nation is really important, and we want to thank them for their service and preparation for that. On this past Saturday, we celebrate School Board Member Day, and this is such a important day. You know, believe it or not, board members are not paid for their service, so it's a labor of love, and we are truly honored when a board member makes that decision to step into the arena of this kind of service. It is such a exciting and opportune time. We know that it carries a heavy weight, but we wanted to take a minute, and we have a small token of our appreciation that I think you've now received at your table. There it is, yeah. And just a small, and also just some additional little surprises in there for you. And so we just want to thank you for your service, and it's really important. And I am just truly grateful when we start to think about all the ways in which this board has already had an impact on our work. And you think about from the policies to the demands for higher and higher expectations, particularly in how we collaborate well with each other and our staff and our families. So we want to thank you for that. This week, we kick off our first, well, it's actually our second in a series of student assignment-focused community engagement sessions. I want to thank Dr. Kincaid for her leadership in working with our school leaders, with community members, with teachers, with staff, to really think about the way in which we have to think about the growth in our area. From the day I landed in this district area, the growth is coming, the growth is coming. So how do we prepare for this, right? How do we think about this? How do we do this in a way that really acknowledges the fact that we have all the seats we need? We just have to make sure that we're getting, we're being thoughtful about those decisions. And so this week you have two opportunities. Please come out if you're interested. That's Tuesday, tomorrow night, and Wednesday evening at 6 o'clock at Oswego High School. And there is a lot of excitement. It's coming up. We have our break starting this coming Saturday for the following week. We will not have school, but we want to wish everyone a restful, wonderful holiday season with your families. And also just remembering those who may not have, and maybe there's an opportunity to give some service and to give something back during that period. So I just want to just say how grateful I am to be able to serve and to celebrate this period with all of you. So, and with that, I want to invite our board members to give out some more positive shout outs, because there is a lot to cover, and I want to thank you for your sharing your joining me in these shout outs.
This week is American Education Week. This is an excellent time for us to celebrate public education in our schools while honoring educators, support staff, students, and parents.
You know, and just a quick question. Was that the first time for the public forums that we did the Zoom where we were taking questions from the audience online?
Second time. I know that my first year we did, so that was the second time we did it. Yeah.
Just thought it was cool.
Yeah.
At this weekend's.
Do you want me to?
Yeah.
All right. At this weekend's IHSA State Swim and Dive Championships, Addie Miller of OEHS was the state champ in the AWD 100 breaststroke and took second place in the AWD 200 freestyle, second place in the 50 free AWD, and second place in the 100 free AWD. Congratulations to Addie.
We appreciate the volunteers of Maddie's Mitten March for setting up at our district's office today, handing out coats and winter gear to keep kids and families warm this winter. And thank you to the Oswego Transportation Association for their assistance in coordinating the distribution.
At last week's signing day, we celebrated several student athletes who officially committed to continuing their academic and athletic careers at the collegiate level. Congratulations to these students from OHS and OEHS.
Josiah Watson of Oswego East High School has been named to the 2025 Illinois High School Football Coaches Association Honorable Mention All-State Team. And Danielle Stone, also of OEHS, has been selected as Chicago Bears Honorable Mention All-State Flag Football Team. Congratulations, Josiah and Danielle.
Murphy Junior High School's math team placed third at the annual Marmion Competitional. Congratulations to these students.
Finally, Community Cares, as you know, every year does a holiday project where we
collect names of families in need, and we look for sponsor families to basically purchase gifts based on suggestions for all of these families. We distribute them close to Christmas, just a way to make the holidays brighter. We do have our collection of families. We are still looking for sponsors for district families, and again, these are within our community, so they're our district family. We're still looking for sponsors as part of the holiday project. Please consider taking part in this active service. Visit the Community Cares Facebook page for more information. Or you can certainly contact me and I can give you information, but please consider helping out this season. Thanks.
Thank you very much. And we do have, as we close out this week, there are some exciting scrimmages with Special Olympics. So coming up, so please look out for a scrimmage at OE, where our orange and silver team, high school teams will play each other. So those are, and then there's a tournament this coming weekend. That's correct.
Yeah, the scrimmage is tomorrow night at 5:30, and Saturday there's a tournament going on, and they could really use some volunteer scorekeepers and referees. So if you can donate some time, it does count for service hours for the high school students. You can reach out to Jessica Wade at jwade@sd308.org.
We'll be
A scrimmage
sure to put that
for-
on our social media as well.
A scrimmage for what sport?
It's basketball, and it's the two high school teams are going to play each other.
Thank you. With that, Mr. Sarom.
Moving to 7.1, 2025 general obligation bond refunding.
Thank you,
Yeah,
Mr.
exciting news for the
President.
community.
Thank you, Mr. President. So back on November 4th, we closed on the refunding of a bond that was issued back in 2016. It was due to be refunded in 2025. And that bond amount was $88 million. And just to be clear, by refunding the bond, we didn't extend the duration of the bond. All we did, we took advantage of the opportunity to get low interest rate than what we will pay to bondholders. And the savings that accrue from that actually goes directly to the taxpayer. So I've asked a municipal advisor, Jason Pinkerton, to come before the board this morning, this evening, and just provide an overview of the final sale of the bond.
Thank you, Dr. Over.
Welcome. I wanted to, just as you open, for those who may not be familiar, this is essentially a scenario where you're refinancing, correct? So it's like if in a personal loan, if you're refinancing your home, you're not extending your 35-year, you're just changing the rate, correct? Okay.
Just changing your rate.
I think he's having an issue with the mic. Could we just check over time? We just need it for people online.
Testing.
Oh, there you go.
There we
You're
go.
live.
Perfect.
All right, we hear you.
And
Yes.
it's also only during a certain period of time.
Correct. So as
can't just
Dr.
refinance
Calgati
whenever.
referenced, a bond refunding, unlike a refinancing of your house, can only be done at certain periods of time. And that coincides with the optional redemption date of the original bond issue, which is typically 8 to 10 years after the original issuance. So in this case, the 2016 bonds were callable February 1 of 2026, and you're allowed to refund the bonds 90 days in advance with the closing date 90 days in advance of that call date. So we were in that window to be able to look at the 2016 bonds, and we did sell the bonds on October 1st, and I have the privilege tonight of sharing the results of that sale with you. So get started.
Like we need a drum roll for that.
We definitely do. So in July, PMA presented in front of the board initial estimated savings for the 2016 A bonds. And the initial savings were roughly $5.5 million on a cash flow basis. We also look at the refunding as a measure of present value. So what is the value of kind of the future savings today? And that estimate was just over $4.5 million. The estimated rate or all-inclusive cost of that refunding at the time in July was 4.1%. We did re-amortize the bonds. We did not extend the bonds. Just re-amortizing means within the the maturities that already exist of the bonds, we did re-amortize a little bit. So that's why you see a little bit of that uneven savings. That'll become more clear in a couple of slides. What we attempted to do was smooth out the district's bonds because the prior bonds were, there was a little bit of a slope to them in the future years. So we created a kind of flat plane so that it's an even levy going forward, levy years 2028 through 2033.
And that's through the combination of all our debt service.
Correct.
Not
Yes.
just
So this is just
particular.
analyzing one of the bonds. It was a substantial bond that was outstanding at $85 million. So it was a large amount of principal that was callable, which made it an opportune time to smooth out some of the future debt service years. All right. So where did we end up? Well, ultimately, let's talk about the market a little bit. So in July, interest rates were near to close to highs for the current year. In April, we had Liberation Day, which was the tariff imposition from the federal government, and that created a small increase in interest rates. Those interest rates remained fairly steady, slightly below May, June, and July. In July, we started to see evidence of the economy slowing down. While inflation has been a steady, kind of sticky topic for the last 3 to 4 years, the jobs market started to show evidence of the economy slowing down. In particular, it was a revision to a jobs report from June that caused the Fed to take a new outlook on what the potential inflation outlook for the rest of the year was. For the bond market, that was really good news. Interest rates came down quite a bit. And the net result for the district is when we sold the bonds on October 1st, the district obtained cash flow savings of $11.3 million, which is almost double what we were seeing in July or estimating in July.
And those savings go directly to taxpayer.
Exactly.
And the district doesn't keep any of it.
Yeah, so that's $11 million that we will not collect.
That's $11 million that you
That
will
the
not levy.
bondholders would not see. The previous
Right.
bondholders would not see.
Right.
So those
Yeah.
are principal and interest payments that are levied payments that the district will levy for annually.
Right.
That is a reduction in those levies. So that
Because
is
we're legally obligated to satisfy our debt.
correct.
So now there's 11 million less of that debt. So I
Correct.
hope, I'm trying to be very clear because it's a nice chunk.
Is there 11 million less of the debt or 11 million less in payments? Then?
It's
in
principal and interest. It's payments.
Yeah.
Correct. So it's not a reduction necessarily in principal. It's a reduction in primarily interest. And that comes from a reduction in the rate of the bonds by financing these new bonds at an all-inclusive cost of a 335. So when we were estimating what the interest rate would be in July, we had estimated a 410. That's a significant reduction of 0.75% between the estimate of July and October 1st when the bonds sold. The present value savings were at $9.1 million. So on a present value basis, that's 9.1 million, and on a percentage basis, it's 10.5%. So more than double where we were on a percentage basis from July.
Can I ask you a question as
Yeah.
a millennial and a homeowner? So when we state that it's going to go back to our community, our taxpayers, can you kind of break down what that would look like? So in 2026, and I'm claiming taxes or what have you, can you kind of give us an idea, again, as a taxpayer in the community, what that would look like?
Well, in 2026, there is no impact. So if you look at the savings, the levy year 2026 savings is, or levy year 2025, so taxes collected from 26, coincides with the February 1 of 2027 bond payment. So if you look at that savings column, it's $3,000. And the next year, it's actually $400. So the next 2 years, there aren't any realized savings. That savings increases 3 years from now, where the cash flow savings are at about $85,000 for 2 years, and then your substantial impact is in 5 years, where the debt service payments are just under $3 million less per year. And I'll show you what that looks like graphically.
This isn't something that is variable. This is something that's locked in.
Correct. This is a
I
fixed
mean, it's
payment.
not
This can't change.
those dollar changes,
Mm-mm.
those dollar savings per year is what this would be.
Yep. It's a fixed cost. It's a fixed rate. It's locked in for the term of the
And we
bonds.
generally collect 35 million a year.
So it all depends. So for the 26,
You're ahead of me a little bit.
for the 26 fiscal year 26 budget, the debt service payment, I believe, is about 36.9 million. That's what the debt service payment. Now for the 2025 levy, which I'm going to present a little later on, and that amount is 36,895,000 is what that debt payment will be in levy year 25.
So I'm doing public math.
Mhm.
Forgive me.
Mhm.
So I'm looking at 2031, and I'm seeing about 16 million of total payments, and it would have been that red line. So it would have been about 19 million.
Correct.
So,
So
3 million less from 19 million. So I mean that's like what, 18%.
Yeah.
That's like so in 2031, that's part of your tax bill will be 18% less than what it is today.
The bond and interest portion of
The
it.
bond and interest portion, which is the part that we, no matter what it is, we have to levy for.
Yes.
and to be clear too, where the principal payments are matter, because ultimately, if there's only an interest payment in those years, the savings are just the difference in the interest payment. So that the savings will be minimal in those years where there was interest only. So where the 2016 bonds were located were in the final 6 maturities. So you see those green bars where the savings was normalized. Some of the dollars or some of the savings from the last 3 years was moved into the first 3. So unfortunately, it looks like the margins got cut off here.
You have a pointer there.
You.
Yes, with the laser. Press that middle button.
The middle button, the green one.
Heather,
Oh.
Dr. PK, your nemesis.
All right. So some of the savings in these years was taken to normalize these years to flatten out these final 6 years. And so you can see where the original levies are this gray shaded area. So this orange or red line is where the original levies were. And you can see where the primary savings are right there.
So not only is there going to be an incremental saving kind of that year one, it'll continue and you won't have a surprise years
There
2, 3,
there
4.
was 380,000 of savings in these years on a $36.9 million levy, which is what this graph is showing here. Obviously, that looks fairly nominal, but it on a cash flow basis, it's still $385,000 of savings. So
Yeah. Cool. I'll let you continue on.
Oops. All right. So looking back on what transpired on the day of sale, PMA acts as a financial advisor to the district. So we're municipal advisor. Raymond James is the underwriter that sold the bonds. And so what this is it's a snapshot of Raymond James's hard work. And you can see the maturities 2031 through 36, where the bonds are located. You can see that they received orders of at least 1 time subscription, meaning that they had a full amount of orders for those maturities, to as much as 3 times subscribed here in 2035. And that's an indication of how investors, valued the district's bonds. And we saw quite a bit of investor appetite, to the point that we were actually able to reduce interest rates on the day of sale.
Yeah.
This is a very
Yeah. So just to be clear, try to put it in layman's terms. When we went to the market to price the bonds, there were more interest Buyers wanting to buy the bonds. Now we have the number of bonds available to sell. So what that happen is, it's kind of like demand and supply. Where if you have more demand than you have supply, it tends to push the prices down.
Push rates
Right.
down.
And one of the key reasons, I would say, before the sales of the bond proceeded, we had to do a rating call with Moody's, where they went through our financials and the things that we've done in the district to move the district forward. And Moody then releases a report that investors tend to look at that provide an independent opinion of where the district finances are. And the report points to a positive outlook for the finances of the district. So when investors will look at that, that gives them a really good feeling about the trend, if you will, where the district is going, which helps with that. And I think it's an affirmation of the work that the board has done, the direction the board has taken in making sure that we're really managing the district's money well.
So, yeah, so basically the market and investors feel that we're a better buy than we used to be. And we're better managing our funds. So, and we're being rewarded.
We know the market is not emotional. It's about making money.
Well, that's why,
Okay.
yeah, I kind of point that out. Yeah.
And so I wanted to kind of elaborate on that point and share what we as kind of financial professionals in this municipal bond space look at in terms of how we evaluate how the district's bonds sell. So what I call this is our comparable sales kind of pro forma file. And so when we're selling bonds, what we do is we look at other comparable bond issues, similar to if you're buying a house, you look at comps, similar in credit rating, similar in length, similar in issue size, maybe call date. And we examine how they price on a spread to what is called the Municipal Market Data Index. And what the Municipal Market Data Index is, MMD for short, it is a tax-exempt benchmark that we price to in the municipal bond industry. So similar to like LIBOR or even like the U.S. Treasury, this is the tax-exempt muni benchmark. So when we look at the district's bonds, because these were tax-exempt bonds, we focus on this blue shaded column because that is what's called the spread to the MMD. And if you look at a couple of bond sales that priced the week prior to your bonds, this Tazewell County School District 52 sale, so Washington 52, as well as Cook County School District 102, so LaGrange. LaGrange was a very close comp to the district because of the size of the bond issue. Looking at these blue columns, you'll note that the district, which has an A1 underlying credit rating and an A1 credit rate, a recently upgraded A1 credit rating, which is comparable to from Moody's, and then Washington actually has an A+, which is comparable to the district. It's kind of the exact same credit rating, but S&P. And then this double A- from S&P, which is actually a step above, a notch above the district's credit rating, so a little bit better than the district's credit rating. You'll see in the corresponding years where we're looking at this blue column, the district actually priced on par with or better than those other bond issues that had priced the week prior. So on a spread to MMD basis, the district's bonds priced very, very well.
Are we, so I never heard that. I've been, working in the finance committee and all that stuff for years. So is that a trend? Is that a relatively new trend in Oswego, or I'm just wondering?
Of pricing to the MMD or pricing better than
like
other
pricing
districts?
to the market, pricing to the MMD.
No, this is a pretty common transaction. This is something that we look at for every negotiated.
No, I was
transaction
just
in the
wondering
market.
if like 10 years ago, if that was a lot different.
It would have for the district specifically, if the credit rating history was per se worse, I suppose. What you would see is much larger numbers in this blue shaded area. You'd be pricing wider. You'd probably be looking at differently rated school districts as well. So that ultimately the reception of this particular bond transaction and the credit rating of this transaction allowed it to price favorably compared to some of your peers.
Okay, that's fine. Appreciate that.
And then the last slide here is just some of the details of the bonds. So the 2016 bonds were funded with just under 87 million. We included the interest rate that was refinanced, which was a 4.91%. So you can see kind of the difference between what you're paying going forward versus what you did or were paying if you had not refunded the bonds. Final maturity, no extension, was February 1 of 2036. Bonds closed 2 weeks ago. And they're non-callable, which means going forward, because there's only 10 years of outstanding bonds, there's no call date associated with this financing. Underlying rating A1 from Moody's, and then BAM is a credit enhancement that's associated with bonds that are below AA rating.
Thank you, Jason. Something else I wanted to point out, that the day we went to price the bonds, there were two bigger issuers. One was from Cook County, and the other one was from Will County. They have a higher credit rating than we did. So we were kind of concerned that they may crowd us out of the market, but we held our own, and we were still oversubscribed. So we still got really good interest rate, and I think it speaks to the work that's been done in the district.
Well, congratulations to you and your team for your due diligence. It seems to me that that kind of effort required, it's not by chance, but it's really the result of very tactical, careful attention to our finances and a movement for us to get this kind of, I guess, attention from the market, right? So I want to thank you all.
And I just want to confirm for anyone at home that's joining us late, this 86 million has already been spent. It was spent long ago.
Many years.
Many years ago. This is not new money. This is something that we have been working on paying down over time. It's just a loan that we've refinanced at a lower rate in order to benefit taxpayers, but it's not new money.
Thank you.
Well, thank you. Any other questions? No? Okay.
Thank you.
Appreciate your time. Thank you for coming out. And then moving to 7-2, the 2025 Illinois School Report.
Now moving on to some more important and exciting news, right? So in the strategic plan, there's a lot of focus on both how we do business and what is our business, and we are in the education business. So tonight, board, I want to invite members of our leadership team to walk us through the annual report that came most recently regarding our summative designations and some of the progress and opportunities we have to strengthen our core practice. And really in this presentation, it really, I would just say, is that the final result at the end of the day, as you're listening, is really appreciation to our educators and our school leaders for their really due diligence in the community and their work. I want to invite, I know Dr. Waller and Dr. Campbell, are you all going to stay where you are, or you want to, and Dr. Dubiel? So you're, okay, all right, we're going to pull over from there. And the floor is yours.
Yeah.
All right, good evening.
Give me 1 second. I want to encourage you to ask any questions and provide any input throughout the, any of the presentations. This one is going to be about kind of where we stand, from our report cards with this. So.
Okay, sounds good.
All right.
Thank you. Good evening. Tonight we are reviewing the results and summative designations for our Beagle School District.
That.
The mic's not working.
It's not picking
You got to be closer, I think, or something.
Closer?
Yeah.
That's mic check.
Okay.
Yeah, there you go.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's like you got to be right on it.
All righty. Oh, you're moving. The next.
Oh.
All righty. Okay. These, went a little
You're
too
gonna have to
fast.
pause
Oh,
it.
is it on play? Go ahead.
You could maybe pause if you have access to it. You could pause it after each slide. You can take it off. Who has to make it powerful? When I clicked on the agenda, it's a just slide. It slides in our agenda. PDF slides.
Thank you.
All right, take two. Tonight, we're reviewing the 2025 school report card results and summative designations for School District 308. There we go. This data results reflect how schools are performing compared to the state and how our improvement efforts are impacting student learning. Tonight, our objectives are twofold: to explain how summative designations are determined and to share key takeaways from the 2025 state report card that inform our district improvement priorities. First, summative designations, and what are they? ISB has determined 4 major summative designations: exemplary, commendable, targeted, and comprehensive. These summative designations are the state's way of identifying school performance and growth. They incorporate both academic outcomes like proficiency and growth, and student outcome indicators such as attendance and climate. To help the state determine these summative designations, they have cutoff scores for each of these designations. These cutoff scores change annually.
All right, for K-8 schools, designations are based on 75% academic indicators and 25% student success indicators. The biggest contributors for K through 8 are ELA and math growth, each weighted at 25%, so growth matters more than proficiency alone. This approach allows schools to be recognized for moving all students forward, not just those already meeting expectations.
High school summative designations have 75% academic indicators, with 50% focused on 4-year, 5-year, and 6-year cohort. In addition, we have ELA and math proficiency at 7.5%, science proficiency at 5%, and English learner progress to proficiency at 5%. In addition, 25% of student success indicators include chronic absenteeism at 10%, 9th grade on track, and the climate survey at 6.67%. ISB has released new business rules this year. We know that our high school summative assessments have shifted from the SAT to the ACT. Because of that, proficiency rates from 2025 onward cannot be directly compared to prior years. Illinois is also redesigning the accountability system for a 2026 launch, so this year's designation serves as a bridge year.
Okay, so this house shows how ISB calculates a school's overall designated score. You can think of each indicator as a room in that house, and together they will form the foundation of how success is measured. For academic growth in ELA and math, which I said before makes up half the total score, showing that Illinois values how much students improve each year. Student success indicators, attendance, and climate make up another 25%, reflecting that learning conditions matter as well. In this example that you see here, the overall index is at an 83.85, which would make this school exemplary. As you can see here, Homestead Elementary has earned an exemplary designation, placing it among the top 10% of schools statewide. Let's give them another quick round of applause. Hey. All of our other schools, 12 elementary, 5 junior highs, and 2 high schools, are rated commendable, meaning they're performing above the state average with no subgroups in the lowest 5%. Congratulations.
That's a big deal.
So Fox Chase, Old Post, Boulder Hill, and Long Beach are all working through their improvement plans focused on supports for students with disabilities. Fox Chase, Old Post, and Boulder Hill were targeted previously, and Long Beach was comprehensive. Each school is in a different stage within their cycle. So as you can see here, Fox Chase and Old Post are in year 1 of implementation. Next slide. And Boulder Hill and Long Beach are in year 2 of implementation.
Mr. Murray's.
Alrighty, so what you see in front of you is a comparison of our local school districts. Listed here is West Aurora, 129, Valley View, which is Bolingbrook School District, Plainfield, 202, and Indian Prairie, 204, and us at the bottom there for Oswego, SD308. When you look across the lines there and you see the numbers 0, 5, 10, 15, those are the number of schools, okay? And so as you can see, the dark blue is exemplary, the orange is commendable, the green is targeted, and the light blue is comprehensive. And you'll notice that no schools in any of the districts are listed as comprehensive. So when we look at SD308 alongside our neighboring districts, specifically Plainfield 202 and West Aurora, which we are snuggled right in between both, SD308 leads with 58.2% proficiency, whereas Plainfield is at 55% proficiency and West Aurora is at 33% proficiency. So this shows that our Tier 1 instruction and literacy intervention practices are making some headway. Yay. Now for our math, SD308 is at 43.6% proficiency, Plainfield 202 is at 42% proficiency, and West Aurora is at 27% proficiency. In math, we're closely aligned with Plainfield, but we significantly outperform West Aurora, but we also understand that math remains to be an important opportunity for us in our district.
We will continue to unpack the school report card data, but provide an overall enrollment demographic information. As you can see, the overall enrollment from 2024 to 2025 dipped a little bit from 16,696 students to 16,601 students. Our diversity remains to be one of our strengths as the population grows.
All right, so let's get into our Illinois Assessment of Readiness data for ELA. Our district saw a significant growth in both ELA and math this year. As I stated before, our ELA proficiency rose from 45% to nearly 58%, and our math grew from 32% to 44%. Both of these areas exceed state averages, showing the impact of our work thus far. This is a huge win, for our growth. Next here we have our Illinois Assessment of Readiness breakdown by demographics. As you can see, the yellow represents not proficient and our green represents proficient.
I think the term growth is really important here, and you've said that a couple of times. It's a huge win for our work on growth, and I know that even Dr. King and I were talking about this earlier, and so I just really want to underscore that we're not talking about a summative comparison. We're talking about the growth compared to like peers and how our students are doing in comparison to like peers. So.
Yes, thank you for sharing that. And to just make sure I'm clear here, so the IAR-ELA growth measures how much progress students make from one year to the next compared to other students across the state who had similar starting points. It's not necessarily about the proficiency, did they meet the standard, but rather, are they growing? How did they improve relative to their peers? Now here we have the comparison to the state. So in the previous slide, it was showing us the not proficient and the proficient for our district overall and understanding where our demographics are as a breakdown. And then we wanted to take it a step further and compare where we are to the state. And so where you can see here is that we are at a higher proficiency rate in all subgroups except for one demographic in our ELA state comparison. Now, in this slide, we are focused on our math proficiency. SD308's average math growth percentile is 50.4 in comparison to the state average of 50. That means our students are growing at a slightly faster rate than their peers across Illinois. And then we've done the same thing here for our math IAR, and you'll see again in that yellow not proficient, in the green proficient, and the numbers in this area vary. We recognize that we are going to continue growing our students with disabilities, low-income students, and our students of color. And as you can see here, now we have the comparison from within our district as well as with the state, and we are at a higher proficiency rate in all subgroups except for two demographics here. So as you can see here, this is the summary of the growth. At the top, you'll see our growth ELA data, and at the bottom, you'll see our math data as it compares to the state. And looking at both of these, you'll see that the state average of 50 represents the middle median point. So SD308 students are at a roughly the same rate as the state overall when we're looking at ELA. And as I noted before, we are making slightly faster growth than our peers in math. So as you can see here, in 2024, our meets and exceeds cut scores are not going to be equivalent to the 2025 proficiency scores. So these two are not going to be equivalent because the math has shifted. But what will remain the same, so even though it's meets and exceeds from in 2024, proficiency, that language is still the same. So our IER data was 45% meets and exceeds in 2024, and now in 2025 it's at a 58.2%. And then for our IRA math, it was at 32.2% meets and exceeds in 2024, and now it's at a 43.6% proficiency in 2025. Our proficiency rate set a new baseline for 2025 and cannot be directly compared to prior years.
The next set of data is our high school ACT data. First, looking at our ACT English data, you can see that we're at 59.1% of meets and exceeds, higher than the state at a 51.7% in English on the ACT. The next slide gives you a demographic breakdown where you can see our comparison between the state. If you go to the next slide, provides a demographic breakdown. We are the blue and the gold is the state. We are higher than the state in every subgroup except two. The next slide gives you our proficiency of meets and exceeds for ACT math. We're at a 46.2% in comparison to the state at a 39.3%. And the next slide provides demographic breakdown. Again, the district is blue, the state is gold. You can see that we're higher than the state in all subgroups except two areas. Even though this is high school data, it reflects the long-term impact of our K-8 foundation of Tier 1 instruction. The next slide provides an overview of our Illinois science assessment. You can see that science results remain steady, but trail slightly behind English and math performance. We continue to focus on the curriculum renewal cycle with science this year at the 9-12 level, going into stage 1 and stage 2 of the curriculum renewal cycle, which we hope to see an impact on our student achievement scores in the future.
When it comes to subgroups, our English language learners are the only subgroup that we want them to test out. So when looking at this slide, start off with the upper right-hand corner. 15.2% represents all of our multilingual/English language learners. That translates to a little under 2,500 students. Each year, our English language learners are exiting per the Access Assessment. So last school year, 9.7 students exited. This is one of our fastest growing subgroup population, and the exit rate is increasing. So comparably, this is an increase in improvement in language acquisition. If you look at the charts on the left-hand side with the different shades of green, those represent the different levels of language acquisition. Most of our students, just like in the state of Illinois, are at the developing stage of English language proficiency.
This next set of data gives you 4-year, 5-year, and 6-year graduation rates. If you read from left to right, you can see where we started in 2021 to where we are in 2025. Last year and this year remained steady at 95.5%. Our district's graduation rate continues to trend above the state average. If you go to the next slide, it provides the 5-year graduation rate. Again, we are higher than the state, and we have been for the last several years. And then the 6-year graduation rate again shows higher than the state, with last year at 96.3%. This is evidence that early academic growth, strong middle school transitions, and consistent attendance are paying off. This demographic data provides an overview of the 4-year high school graduation rates by demographics. You can see that we are higher in every demographic group than the state overall, which is a celebration. The next slide provides an overview of our 9th grade on track, which is an area of focus for both of our high schools, with the goal of by the end of 9th grade, students must have at least 5 credits and not have failed more than 1 semester of a core class. You can see that we remain higher than the state at a 93.2%. This slide gives you an overview of our demographic data. We are higher than the state in every demographic group except one subgroup.
And this is an area I just want to underscore. There's a lot of research that speaks to 9th grade on track in relation to graduation rates and also college, retention, or really completion of college. And so I think this is the fact that in the last slide, we saw that increasing slope. And I know that both of our high schools have made that a part of their school improvement planning work, a priority. And so I just want to say kudos to our high school. And really, as Dr. Campbell has mentioned, it's really a K-12 effort, but we at the high school level, that this has been a targeted area. How do we support our freshmen in their start is really important. So, and you all are in high schools. Good job.
Yes, thank you for highlighting that. We know that students who are on track after 9th grade are almost 4 times more likely to graduate on time. So this next slide gives an overview of our demographic data. You can see it's a comparison from 2024 to 2025. The lighter blue is 2024, the darker blue is 2025. You can see that in almost every subgroup, we are higher than we were the previous year. So we are continuing to show growth of students graduating or being on track from their 9th grade year. This next set of slides is actually District 308 data on chronic absenteeism. The state defines chronic absenteeism as students who are chronically absent from school 10% of the year, including unexcused and excused absences. You'll notice the data in 2021 is lower significantly than 2025. That was still coming out of the COVID era. But we continue as a district to actually see a decrease, and the numbers actually we want to see trend in the negative. So we want to go down, not up. So we can see that we did show improvement from last year to this year. We're at a 20% overall for chronic absenteeism. This is demographic data. Overall, you can see that we're at a 20%, again, lower than the state in all subgroup areas except one. This remains a focus for our schools. Our student services department at the district level leads monthly meetings with our schools to talk about students that are not attending school and provide supports both for students, families, community, and teachers to find ways to bring our students to school. So overall, District 308 is performing above the state in proficiency and showing strong growth across our schools. Our focus continues to be on sustaining the trajectory and closing gaps for students of color, multilingual learners, and students with disabilities. We're seeing the power of coherence when systems, leadership, and instruction align. Student success follows. Thank you.
Dr. Kincaid, you've led this presentation for a few years now, so is there anything you would like to add before we open up for questions? Congratulations. Thank you, team, for your presentation. I know that, is there anything else that you think you'd like to add? No? Okay. All right. Thumbs up. Okay.
Any questions? No?
No, I don't have any questions. I do have a comment though. I think that it is really impressive, and I talked about this during our committee meeting, not policy committee meeting, but during our committee meeting. I told the team, first of all, I just want to congratulate those schools that were comprehensive and targeted. It is not an easy feat to shift when we talk about designation. So for those four schools, kudos to those teachers, to the administrators, to those students and families. It is so important. The other piece that I do want to call out, I always say numbers don't lie, right? Like the work is being done, given the fact that we are exceeding the state just across the board, specifically when we talk about subgroups that are just hard to move. And in most districts, they are not moving, they're stagnant. And so the fact that we're doing that here at SD308, we need to congratulate again our teams. Great job. I am really excited about this. I was excited last week and I continue to be excited about this presentation. Absolutely wonderful job. We're on the right track, and I think it's just about us standing behind these numbers and strengthening these numbers. Great job.
I have just a couple comments. Sure. I saw the presentation at the committee meeting as well, so I've had that time to digest and reflect a little bit as well. I concur with everything Dr. Pollock is saying, and I appreciate, that our state, when they give designations, take into consideration other things besides just one cut score, right? Like they have this growth aspect, they have a climate aspect, they have things related to special, populations, et cetera, et cetera. And then even in this presentation, I'm glad that we are highlighting a variety of data rather than just the, we had the science data, we had the absentee, like we have that data that we're looking at, because our students are more than just a number, right? Than whether or not you're proficient or not proficient. And so I think it's important that we are always thinking about different lenses to see our progress through. And I think this is one of those lenses. And I think we're moving in the right direction. Just like with any big sets of data, you can see like some great successes and moving forward. And then we also have, opportunities for growth. You talk about those different populations that are sometimes hard to move. Yes, we're seeing growth, but there's more growth to happen, right? And so I think we're on the right track. And again, kudos to the team.
Just another quick comment that it's in line with everyone else. In some of the cases, you see the numbers move from year to year. What looks to be very minuscule, like less than 1%, 0.6% or whatever. Keep in mind that we have a very large district, so 1% represents almost 1,700 students. So if we're moving a 0.5%, while it doesn't seem what?
10%.
That's 10%.
It's 10%.
Sorry.
It's 170. You're right. 170 students.
That's a lot of students.
Yeah, I was in Math Honor Society. But they've changed in all these years. But regardless, we're still talking a significant number of students. So it may look like nothing, but it's not. And each of those students counts. Sit back quietly now.
Randy? Questions?
No, I'm just really excited, as Dr. Polak and the rest of the members have stated. So excited to continue to see the improvement, especially for our subgroups that need that special attention. But again, kudos to the district and all the people that continue to help our kiddos. Thank you.
I'm looking forward to seeing next year's, to be honest, on the things that couldn't be compared year over year. When you get a new set of data, but the information was good. So, that's the only thing. Whenever they change it, it's like every 7 years. It's like but I appreciate it.
How will we? I do have a question. Will we specifically celebrate at the school level? I think I asked that during our committee meetings. And then also, how will we communicate this to families? Like, obviously, we're talking about this, but what this really looks like for each individual school, because obviously we are seeing like an airplane view of it. And while we can't compare like year after year, we can most certainly compare to state data, which is a huge deal because it's not unique just to us that the needle has moved just a bit, but we can still compare to state data. And so I think that this is something that should be shared. And as a parent, I'd like to, specifically delve deeper into maybe, well, my kid is at East, but East data, right? And just what does that mean as a parent? How do I support this work? And so I'd love to hear more about it. Not today necessarily, but definitely if we can bring that back and talk a little bit about that, that would be helpful.
Yeah, good thought. Anybody else?
We definitely want to find a way to underscore it and celebrate it and communicate it. So I'm sure as we've principals were chomping at the bit. I know that some have already started to share that in their newsletters and share it out, some of that news. I know that Teresa received a couple requests. When can we get out of the embargo? And so I know that some schools have already really celebrated. So stay tuned for more if it hasn't come to your neighborhood yet, but we will be sharing out that news and we will support our schools and reflecting out the good work that's happening that our students are. And when you visit our schools, you can really see the attention and the focus and the commitment that our students have.
Thank you.
All right.
One quick question. Is this updated on the Illinois School Report Card website? So you could go and look at your individual schools if you'd like to.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, and when I ask like explain or communicating to parents, like obviously I can read through it and I fully understand it, but some parents perhaps can't, right? And how do we really break it down and put it into context? Like I was looking at my daughter's ACT scores and trying to do a crosswalk and make the connection. So that's what I mean when I say
Oh yeah,
that.
we got to push that.
Yeah.
Just count on parents to go. Yeah. All right. 8.1. Are there any public comments today?
No.
Okay. Any member of the public who have not yet turned in their public comment card to the Secretary of the Board are asked to do so at this time. Buddy? We will move to 9.1. Student member report.
So, hello everyone. We just want to give you a brief update on SSAC's progress and what's sort of been going on in the committee. So, in our last meeting, we voted on our action plans actually. So, we dialed it down to 2 action plans. We had our first idea is a lunch and learn, which is our primary area for like targeting. So, and our second action plan was hosting a student teacher led competition. And I just want to remind everyone these action plans are trying to benefit the student teacher relationship. And we're trying to reinforce that idea that rightful presence is should be in the school, and wherever we don't see it, we should try to make a change there. So yeah, so we began developing our action plans, and it was just a really great time. Like for the lunch and learn, we have to there's like so much, it's like a very big structure, and there's so much like minor factors that have to go into this process. So we were like addressing the next steps, potential dates and times, topics to cover, questions to ask, and like essentially what are the resources that we need to make this action plan feasible. So yeah. And then in terms of like the student perspective and what everyone else is sharing, we had a lot of ideas at the last meeting, and when it comes to the scope of the situation, students are really into it. Wait, they're really like interested about the opportunities that rely like on the lunch and learn, and just finding like the right balance of student participation and the teacher relationship is really important, because if we are going to host a lunch and learn, we don't want to have like it's really a question: do we want to limit the amount of students who come, or do we want to limit the amount of teachers who come? It's really depends on the demand of students and the demand of the teachers. So getting in contact with them is really essential to starting this lunch and learn idea. Yeah, students outlined the steps and timeline like for our action plan for the lunch and learn. We just went through everything we need to kind of like put in our action plan, and it was just really good to see how like this committee can collaborate together and share our perspectives and work it out like together. So yeah, teamwork makes the dream work is the theme.
Yeah, completely agreed. With our next steps that we want to foster into this, we're hoping that administration involvement is approved at both Oswego and Oswego East, as well as staff and student engagement as well. We want to work to continue to garner student voice, because we do want students to participate in this equally as much as our staff does. We want to reach out to bigger student bodies such as Coalition and Bionic, who are huge groups at both Oswego and Oswego East. We believe that these students have voices that want to be heard, especially when it comes to these student and teacher relationships in the classrooms. So SSAC is looking for everyone to kind of collaborate, including staff and students. We're working through our action plans to kind of collaborate and figure out when, what time, what day. We want to create a intimate setting, not something that could be like in an auditorium, something to be held in like our community rooms, such as like this, to collectively agree and kind of like share out our problems and issues in our school buildings individually. And with that being said, we continue to look at these actions to our next SSAC meeting tomorrow. And we also wish everyone a happy break for those that celebrate. And yeah, we're looking forward to working with everyone at both schools.
All right. Student teacher competition. What were your initial thoughts? I'm wondering.
So we had multiple action plans, and just at our last SSAC meeting, just dialing it down to like one per quarter. So we chose the lunch and learn, but our second contender was the it was the student teacher led competitions.
Oh, so you're gonna do lunch and learn, the student competition. That might be another quarter, maybe.
Yeah, that might be second quarter in the future.
Okay. I think they're both great ideas.
What is the competition, like weightlifting, spitballs? What is
Hot
that?
dogging
Or still to be decided?
Curling.
It's still to be decided, but who knows?
Come to us for suggestion.
If the demand says weightlifting competition, who is to stop us, right? So, so yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you for that. Yeah, appreciate it. Any other questions? Did you have anything else? Okay. 9.2, board committee reports. Policy and legislation, the board committee report. Does anybody see? We have a lot of first read policies.
We reviewed a whole lot of policies. As a matter of fact, we did not even get to all the policies that we needed to review. So our time was basically spent doing that and having those policies under discussion.
It's one of the committees I haven't been a part of. Is it like, is it very tedious or like?
Our leaders do a good job of preparing
Yeah,
and,
that
and
is
making
true.
it not as tedious for us, but there is some tediousness to the work. But mostly our administration's work and not ours. A lot of the work, or a lot of the policies that we approve, I think are on a 5-year cycle. So we just kind of have to like lay eyes on them every 5 years. Am I saying this right, Dr. Kincaid? And then sometimes we're just like approving like a small legal reference.
Yeah, that's why I was
something,
wondering. Yeah, but then I do see there's some meat that happens.
Yeah, and then there's other policies that we need to weigh in a little bit more on. So.
Yeah, substantive
document.
Yeah, substantive changes will require and will elicit in us a response to really engage in a more community-wide engagement, from everything from community engagement to, like you said, there's a common place that the state has decided that they need to fix, right? So,
yes, and we have 2 policies tonight that we will discuss that we
Yes,
have to
yeah, it's on the agenda.
make decisions regarding.
Okay. Finance Facilities Committee. Would anybody like to report out, or you don't have to? We got a document.
Mr. Obafemi, your new assistant, has taken copious notes, or has taken very well notes, are very good notes. I think it's all pretty much inside the notes.
Okay. And then the Equity and Learning and Innovation Committee.
These are in the notes as well, but we saw a preview of the presentation that we just saw on the different report card items. And then we also had a chance to hear a presentation on the Pathways program, as well as the professional learning in 308. So both presentations very well received.
Okay.
But Dr. Pollack, do you have anything else?
You did an amazing job. There's nothing else.
Okay, we'll move on to 9.3, board member comments, and I'll start. Erica, start over here. Any comments?
No, I don't have any additional comments.
Oh.
No.
I don't have any tonight.
No.
I do, I guess if.
Well, go ahead. Yeah.
No, I just wanted to thank, we had mentioned earlier about Veterans Day. I managed to get out to 5 different schools, which I have to plan it better next time. But anyway, I made it out to 5 different schools for some really great presentations. Boulder Hill did a flag raising and a presentation at about 9:15 on a very cold morning. In the afternoon, I did get over to Long Beach, and prior to the presentation, I went up and I said to Mr. Murray, who I have seen the past few years when I've been at the presentation, and he's gotten all teary-eyed. I told him that I was coming to the presentation because I wanted to watch him cry. And he told me that he was not going to cry this time. And as well, I really couldn't tell you if he cried or not, because by the time it got to the end of the presentation, I was crying.
No.
So very well done. As always, and to all the schools actually that did anything for Veterans Day. You could tell that there was quite a bit of work put into it by staff and by students. So again, well done. And other than that, football, swimming, everything else that's been going on, it's been busy.
Yeah. I only made it to 3. I think this was in the last couple of weeks, well, at least the last 4. I attended an epic open gym night, and that was really, really well attended. And that was over at Fox Chase, and I think they're going to be doing it at Churchill. So keep an eye on the district website. Attend if you can. This is for children with special needs, and it's run by Epic. Exceptional parents of exceptional children. And I think there's probably 5 or 6 more this year. And so please, if you can, make it out. Among other things. I can't even remember. So like Mary Jo said, very busy.
I know we took a moment to congratulate the individual athletes with their accomplishments, and I just wanted to congratulate everyone on their seasons. I know fall
Yes.
seasons are coming to a close. To those of you that were champions and, had those amazingly long seasons that you maybe weren't expecting, congratulations. But to everyone that spent their fall working, whether it was in a sport or a fall activity, just well done. And, if you are not about to engage in a winter activity, then I hope you enjoy your break. But good job, everybody.
Okay, I think we're moving on. Section 10, approve consent agenda. Can I have a motion to approve the consent agenda, please?
Yes, you can. I make a motion to approve all items under consent, including 10.1, minutes from the Board of Education meeting on October 20th, 2025, open and closed sessions, and minutes from the Board of Education public forum on November 3rd, 2025, open and closed sessions. 10.2, to acknowledge the FOIA requests received by the district. 10.3, to approve field trips for overnight and or more than 200 miles. And 10.4, to approve the fiscal year 23 early childhood grant repayment.
Second.
Any questions from anybody? Comments? No? Okay.
Mr. Saron,
Aye. Aye.
Dr. Martin,
Aye.
Dr. Mario,
Aye.
Dr. Polak,
Aye.
Ms. Robinson,
Aye.
Ms. C,
Aye.
Ms. Wenmouth.
Aye.
Motion passes 7-0. 11.1, financial information.
Thank you, Mr. President. The October 2025 financial has been shared in the BoardDoc. And the one note that I want to point out is that if you look at our revenue, it actually decreased by 3.3 in October compared to October of 2024. And the big driving factor of that is federal allocation. Last year, if you remember, we still had the last year of the COVID money. And that COVID money's gone away. And that's really what the big difference is. That's the reason why we have a lower revenue in the federal category than the rest of the category. But otherwise, all the other revenue and expenses are in line with what we are projected will be at this time of the year. Questions?
Are we getting the federal funding that, besides the COVID money, that we were supposed to be getting? Or
It's coming in.
it's still coming?
yeah.
Okay.
Any other highlights or questions?
And of course, we included the CPI there that was released late for the month of September. And as you see, inflation seems to be trending down a little bit than it was previous months. So that's helpful. But other than that, everything is, if you look at a copy of the charts that we share, the revenue as well as the expenses, you can benchmark, for example, historical trend year to date, and it's pretty much aligned. Total revenue historical trend, we should have about 38.24. We are 36.41, and the expenses are the same. They align with historical trend. No outliers, except for the federal revenue that I mentioned earlier.
Okay.
I think one of the important things to call to is, Mr. Obafemi, the practice you have in your department of leading a cash flow review
Yes.
related to this. Why is that significant in our district, and why is that an important practice that you've introduced?
I think just for
And
two
who's
reasons.
involved in that conversation? I think for the board to be aware that there is a monthly cash flow meeting, and who do you bring to the table internally and externally to essentially assess the financial health of the district, much like you would a monthly check-in on your own bills, right? So would you describe that a little bit for the board's education?
Yes, sir, for two reasons. It allows us to have a better idea as how much we need month to month. And then since we get a big chunk of our second installment in September, so it allows us to then develop a way to manage that money, to be able to leverage that money by investing it, so we can get the residual yield from those investments to be able to fund things that we're doing in the district in a better way. And secondly, it allows us to be able to plan and see if we would need to borrow money from the low point of April, May, till we get our first installment in June. And the way it looks right now, we should be fine till we get a first installment of the 2025 levy by the last week in May. And in doing the financial projections, we do it internally here in the finance office. And we just wanted to make sure that what we're seeing as far as the projection is balanced against what municipal advisors do too. Municipal advisors, they help us with the investment of our money. So we have them to do we share the projection that we have with them and see if there are any variances with them. So we meet once a month and we check numbers, we have conversation. We also take the time to talk about investment opportunities that is available out there that we can place money in. Since the cash flow drives how much we need from month to month, so if we have any extra, instead of just letting it sit in a bank account, we look for the appropriate investment that allows us to gain some yield and still have money available to be able to fund district operation, both personnel and non-personnel.
I always like to stress that that's a relatively new practice, and it's yielded probably 5 million.
Yes, a good amount of money.
In a couple of years.
Yeah.
So
We started that when we started here. This is the third year. We met with the municipal advisor. We said we would do cash flow internally, and we will have them do their cash flow independent of ours, since they do our investments for us. And we'll compare note and we'll have discussion to see if where their variances and the rationale for those variances, to try to leverage their expertise with the internal expertise that we have here. And involved in that conversation is the bookkeeper, the director of finance, Ms. Sita behind me, myself, on the district's team. And then we have the managing director of the municipal advisor, Mr. Bob Lewis, and then the associate vice president of PMA, our investment company. We get together once a month and we have that review.
I remember the first time I saw the investment strategy and the layouts. I was a little nervous. We hadn't done that, and but it's worked out and worked out well. So you took your time to make sure that we were accounting for our cash flows, ins and outs, and at the appropriate time. So
Just putting our money to work the right way.
well, yeah,
Instead of the bank putting our money to work and they're not giving us anything back. Because that's really what they do. They take our money and put it to work.
well,
And we don't see any value of it.
Any other questions about our finances?
No, well, I guess this is a question. All of the financials, et cetera, on an ongoing basis are available online to the public.
Yes, we posted the following day after the board meeting, but we included us in the BoardDoc for the public to see, and then we posted on the finance website month to month so they can review it. All the information available there.
So if anyone has any questions, that would probably be the first place that they should go to find the numbers.
By all means, thank you.
Thanks.
I appreciate that, Mary Jo. Anybody else?
I have a question on the fee collection data. I know there's a little asterisk on the bottom letting us know that it's a snapshot. Is my assumption correct that by the end of the school year, that collection rate could look quite different? Or
Yes, so the asterisk is because it's a snapshot in time. Every single day there are fees being added, refunded, etc. It doesn't even include all the fees. Like it doesn't include meal fees. It doesn't include little fees like parking passes,
Right.
books, things like that. But I did want to point out that the fee collection rate went up a little bit, so I'm glad. So thank you for that. And we're still collecting fee waivers and food waivers. So please apply if you need it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay. And I think moving on to 11.2, correct? The long range facility one.
Drum roll, please.
Oh, jeez. Yeah, I saw some of this.
Mr. Andre, would you come next to Stephen? I just want to make sure. Is Andre on camera? I just want to make sure. Okay. He has very important things to share tonight. So I don't want him to lose. You sit right here.
Welcome again. Thank you.
Mr. Murray. All right. Good evening, board. We want to welcome again this evening. This is the culmination of close to 14 months of deep work across the district, multiple people involved in really leading this project and this process, which is really to really move us from a place of really sometimes what feels like waiting for the next emergency to occur into really some deep, profound, thoughtful planning where we're really scoping out and preparing ourselves for the future. So I want to thank our partners at White & Company for their leadership, and also to all of the hundreds and thousands of staff members, students, community members who participate in this effort. So with that, I'll turn it over. Okay, Mr. Andre.
Thank you, sir. Hello, board. This first slide, I'd like to point out a couple key details. As you can see, it states that the average age of our building is 29 years old. I had to take a double look at that because knowing the amount that we opened after the year 2000, also knowing that the 4 last schools that we built off of our referendum were Hunt Club, Southbury, Trauber, and Murphy that are now in their 18th year. Just wanted to point out that we don't have a district full of brand new buildings anymore. They're getting to the point where it takes a lot of love and tender care to keep these buildings running. So the age of our buildings, as you can see on the slide, many of the buildings are all constructed in a short period of time, meaning the useful life of the mechanical systems, the roofs, flooring, and other essential components are running out at the same time. Additionally, we have a handful of buildings that are several decades older. Across the district, comprehensive, proactive, and preventative maintenance has been delayed for many years at a cost savings measure. Our team has done the best they can with preventative maintenance, but not being able to have contracts with specified contractors to come in to work on some of these more advanced systems has put a strain on the buildings themselves. However, this means we are forced to be reactive, having to rush to spend more urgent situations when things no longer work. We need to get back on schedule of planning maintenance, understanding the anticipated life of each asset, and systematically planning for how and when it may need to be replaced. The educational spaces need modernization. Classrooms, labs, libraries, and student support areas must evolve to support current and future learning, including technology upgrades, flexible spaces, and specialized program needs. Strategic, transparent financial stewardship. A comprehensive plan helps prioritize projects, align investments with available funding, and provide a clear roadmap for reasonable, sustainable decisions, reducing surprises. And with that, I would like to pass it to Dr. Kincaid.
As Andre mentioned, we really started our journey examining the mechanicals and the operational functions of our building. But as we launched our strategic plan, through the feedback of not only our teachers, our staff, our building leaders, but also our students and our community, we wanted to really expand beyond operations into what is the educational functions and how are we currently using our building, but where do we want our programs to go educationally? So through the objectives for this year, we dove into, through the help of White and Company, and then also our communication leaders and our building principals, really looked at phase 3 of how do we engage our students and our parents and families of what could be part of our educational process. As we look throughout the night, we'll see information not only about our operational needs, but then also about what was the data that was collected, what was the input provided, both of what is and what we would love to be. So we're really here tonight to bring together our story across all 3 phases of our strategic plan connected to our long-range facility plan.
Well, I guess that's, we're up now. And I think that was all really well said, and in some ways you almost heard it all, but we're going to add a little bit more detail to that to underscore everything that those points that were just made. We wanted to remind you that we're the architects and engineers, but we're also a part of a team, and that team includes the district. So we want to thank all of you for the partnership in making this happen, because getting those meetings scheduled, making them happen, and getting people to the table is really the success of the project at the end of the day. And it's also the part I think that I enjoy personally the most. Not here tonight, McKinstry. Oh, where are they? Oh, there you are. Okay. Sorry, he snuck in before I knew he was going to be here, but I didn't see him come in. So they're here to support us in this presentation. There is a lot of, in some senses, technical underlayment to some of the ideas and numbers you're going to see tonight for the physical conditions assessments, the systems, things like that. So they're here to support us. Beyond Your Base is the other logo you see up there. They're going to get involved to help us explore some additional community engagement, some consensus building, some understanding of the support of how we might fund this project in the future and take that into the next step. So in some ways, we're closing a chapter, but we're about to start another chapter of really looking at how to implement it. Let's go to the next slide, actually. So we have a kind of a basic agenda tonight. We're going to take you on a little bit of a journey and go back in and talk a little bit about some of that stakeholder engagement in a little bit more detail. And then phase 3, which is really what we've just finished, and it really is the planning phase. It's really where everything comes together. We take all the data, whether it was about what it cost, whether it was about what needs to be done, but equally importantly, how to meet your educational vision. So when you see the presentation tonight, you're going to see it. Our goal is that we tie it all together for you. And what ties it all together, in fact, is your strategic plan. And we develop what's called guiding principles. You're going to hear about that in a moment. And then tied all the ideas and the things that are being done to achieve those guiding principles. And then we're also going to take a little bit of a look by type of building and grade levels in the buildings themselves, so you can get a better understanding of how we organized the analysis of the building so that we have a comprehensive plan. And then finally, we're actually going to look at the cost factors. And maybe the last point I'll make, and I'll stop talking. Oh, I have another slide after that, is that this is a long-range plan. It's a framework. So tonight, we are not talking about how do things get funded? How do we implement it? When do we implement it? It's a 10-year plus plan. So tonight, you are looking at and learning more tonight about the whole entire plan and what's in it And then as we move forward in time, we will come up with very creative ways to focus on that. So this is the diagram the schedule you've been seeing pretty much from day one. We're in phase 3. We passed through conditions and education alignment. Now we're planning and compiling, and we have a plan, and we have a direction, and we hope that you'll be equally excited about it tonight as we move through it. I didn't introduce myself. We started so quickly. Stuart Brodsky, we're all three of us up tonight are with White and Company. I'm a project director, planner, actually Needy's our project manager, but sometimes I do that too. And just inspired by the opportunity to help you achieve your vision.
Good evening, I'm Steve Shear with White and Company, Design Principal.
Before I start speaking, I'm Needy Shah. As Stuart said, I'm project manager and architect with White and Company. All right, so I think the first part we really want to iterate is the stakeholder engagement. We were really lucky that the district and the community was so involved in all aspects of this plan, and it's really about our story or our plan. So we really wanted to have your take on it and your input. So, you know, we had a lot of different engagements: 500 community parent responses, over 200 meetings, 800 student responses, steering committee meetings, staff surveys. We interviewed principals. We had workshops with principals and staff. The district was lovely enough to create these places and spaces sessions, which Mr. Murray will talk about in a little bit. And Teresa Comitas was, you know, critical in creating all these great surveys and communication with students and staff and parents. We had 3 community engagement forums, and we also, McKinstry and as well as White, went on site. McKinstry visited every single building and met with every building engineer for interviews to kind of get the lay of the land and understand each building. And then throughout this this presentation, you'll see kind of little tidbits from all of our engagement. So you can see this quote here from a junior high student. And so we really wanted to bring that to every aspect of this and see how that was implemented, and that we did really take that into account when we were making this plan. So one vision, many voices. We had a number of engagement sessions, 3 total with White. The first one here on the left is we met with your staff at each building type and did workshops back in March. The second photo is from September. We had a community engagement session over at Murphy Junior High School where we met with community members and went over what the long-range plan is and got some feedback from them. And we were lucky enough in October to actually meet with some junior high students over at Thompson, engage with them as well, while Dr. Kalgati and your team was meeting. So we were able to kind of connect with the students, which was a really great pleasure. I'll hand it over to Mr. Murray.
So the places and spaces is an opportunity that each of our schools had to invite our parents and our students to our building. And I think it made them a little more comfortable. Sometimes you get nervous when you're coming out to a whole district meeting. So with all of our schools, I think there were 22 plus that we had. It gave the teachers, it gave the students and our parents an equal voice, and really had some great input that we had there. It was very well developed. The plan for the night, the feedback that we were getting was consistent across all of the schools. And you guys had put together a really good demographic for each of the buildings that shared that information with them. So we had great turnouts and able to get that voice from the people who want to see the building. They're in the building, and we gave them a voice for what they want the buildings to be for the future. So it was some interesting comments that came out of them, but we'll see where we go with it. But it was great for the opportunity, I think, just to get as many voices as we could through our Places and Spaces events.
Thank you, Mr. Murray. So now we want to spend a few minutes and sort of summarize phase 3, which was the final and last phase of the long-range planning. And as Stuart said, this is the phase where we put it all together. This really becomes a comprehensive long-range plan for you. And so we take some of the gaps or needs that was identified in phase 2, the education alignment, and we look at each school building and try to understand what improvements need to be made to fill those gaps and meet those needs. And, you know, we opened with the strategic plan. So to no surprise, it kind of became a guide for us when we looked at the planning of each of the schools. And we sort of leaned on the 5 characteristics of a portrait of a learner to become our guiding planning principles. They simply made a natural connection from physical space and buildings to what type of students you want to develop as a district. And as a reminder, it should be noted that there's actually 2 additional categories that arose out of all the workshops we've done with the staff and the administration. And those are the ideas of creating active and informed citizens and creating ambassadors of the environment. And those really speak to how the physical environment and the design of your schools could go a long way to invoking this idea of community and how students are part of a larger community. Or as we talk about the educational needs of students, some of these improvements we're making are also speak to the social needs of students, the emotional needs of them. And that's the idea of even the wellness needs of students. So some of these improvements talk about just the overall wellness and health of students. So these kind of 7 principles became our guiding principles as we looked at each school. And we thought we'd offer just some highlights from each grade level. So at the elementary schools, for example, the idea of dedicated space for STEAM was something that was identified through phase 2 and sort of echoed through some of the feedback we got from families and students in the community. So in addition to art and music, getting spaces where students could engage in more hands-on project work that tie in science curriculum and technology and engineering. Another common thread across the elementary schools was getting the functionality of related services sort of correct at each school. These are programs like social work or sensory rooms for students or intervention rooms that over time has simply just taken over space throughout the school because that space was available, even though that room might have never been intended for teachers and students, or sometimes these spaces have taken over classrooms. So the more we could get that right and properly sized at the elementary schools, it sort of frees up classroom and provides you as a district more flexibility in how those classrooms are used. One specific kind of highlight at the elementary level, there's a handful of schools that actually share their cafeteria with their gym. And that comes with lots of scheduling challenges, some of the limitations on how gym could be used, some operational challenges in terms of setup and takedown. So that was something we identified in the long range plan is there a means to get dedicated cafeteria space separate from gym space across all elementary schools. And a lot of these planning priorities continue on to the junior highs, both at the elementary level and the junior high levels. We identified libraries as a key opportunity. It's a common space that impacts all students. So in what ways can those be updated to become more collaborative, more dynamic, and multifunctional? Key to the junior highs is that there's a lot of space across the junior high level that was once a computer lab, but as technology sort of evolved, those spaces are an opportunity now to be repurposed for more STEM and STEAM activities. And this would be in addition to, the great offerings that you already have in terms of the electives and exploratory programs. Outdoor learning was something that we identified in phase 2, but also heard a lot about community feedback, especially at the junior high level too. A lot of sort of buy-in into getting outside and engaging with the outdoors for teaching and learning. Well, we looked at the high schools. The planning priorities, they differ from high school to high school simply because there's just a difference in age. And Oswego High School has underwent significant amount of additions over time, and then with that comes some nuances specific to that school. But we talked a lot about sort of redefining the heart of the school at Oswego High, and this impacts spaces like the library, the cafeteria, which over time as additions get made, sometimes that kind of gets lost. But do it in a way where it becomes a great resource for students. So in those common spaces, students have access to deans, access to counselors, access to college and career, access to some sensory needs. The other highlight is the idea of career technical focus spaces and the fine art spaces. There's great programs being offered at the high school, but sometimes maybe the labs are a little too small, or maybe there's not enough daylight in an art studio. So great opportunities both in fine arts and the CTE spaces for updating spaces and making them more conducive to the programs that are functioning in them. Some outdated science labs at Oswego High that are sort of just due. They're at sort of that 20+ year mark. Talked a lot about collaboration and what furniture and technology could mean. And then we talked a lot about not just the building, but the campus itself. So we heard a lot about families. There's sort of a constant priority about vehicular flow and parking being a high priority, but also some opportunities with the athletic grounds too. In what ways can fields be improved with turf that increase opportunities for every student when it comes to physical education, band, music, outdoor learning. There's also some opportunity to gain some operational efficiencies too in terms of how those fields are maintained. As we go east, slightly different priorities, some common. As we go east has underwent additions, but it's one of the newer of the two campuses, so it actually has a lot more efficiency in terms of its overall square footage. But a lot of comments about just providing more common areas where students can be. That isn't just a classroom or isn't a hallway, but students get there early, students stay there late. So just providing more social and common spaces for study or individual work or group work. Some of the fitness and wellness spaces at East are a little bit more challenged, again, just because of certain additions that went in over time. They're a little bit challenged on their functionality and the ability to be supervised. And then like Oswego High, the CTE spaces, that was clearly an addition built at a certain time, and we could look at what ways those are supporting the current programs, but in what ways can they become more adaptable so as future programs come in that you have the space to accommodate that. And then same comment about site improvements at athletic fields at Oswego East. We also looked at the building on Route 71. This is the building that houses a lot of the extension programs like Pathways, Eastview Academy, the Goals program. A lot of space needs and comments that we got regarding the Pathways program. Space needs that could just offer more authentic learning opportunities for vocational training or life skills through the Pathways. This is a building that houses lots of different functions. So there's also some opportunities just to allow different programs to share spaces when it makes sense, but also make some clear separation of functions when that's needed too. And then related services and student support. That's another kind of function that's just kind of expanded and kind of organically grown over time. There's an opportunity here at this building to sort of right size those spaces, making them more intentional for both staff and students. So what we did from there is we went building and building, and we kind of assigned an expected level of scope to make these improvements at each building so that the education alignment goals are met. And I think the easiest way to explain this is like understanding that when you redo the bathroom at your house, it's more costly than redoing a bedroom, or putting an addition on is more costly than renovating your living room. So we kind of went building by building and assigned an expected level of scope to sort of make these needs a reality. And we looked at every building and kind of was able to understand the scope involved. And what that allows us to do is then to provide an anticipated budget for each building. And this will fold into the last part. So with an anticipated budget and the magnitude of need at each school, you could then begin starting to think about how you're going to implement it. We could begin planning funding strategies. And through here, you could also see that there's certain schools that just kind of fall under what we call a comprehensive need. And those are schools like Long Beach and Boulder Hill, just because of the age of those buildings and the complexity of those sites. In addition to targeted improvements, they're just going to need simply more work to achieve these goals.
And so the index on this page matches then the index color on the next pages?
Yeah,
just to confirm.
yeah.
Okay.
So like the traffic light of colors kind of.
Yes, it stays
the
consistent.
different level of scope.
Perfect, thank you.
And we did the same methodology at the junior high
Steve,
school.
sorry, one more question.
Yeah, I had a quick question. So I'm looking then, that's actually helpful, this kind of traffic light color coding. So if I'm reading it correctly, all of our schools are either in this red or based on this plan, in the heavy, I'm sorry, what's that say? Heavy reconstruction scope or the new construction scope, is that right?
No, the new construction would be any of the blue color that you see. So that's really an addition needed to create like a dedicated cafeteria at some of the elementary schools, or we even rolled in some capacity opportunities in the long run.
So if I look at Long Beach, for example, what color is that?
Yeah, so Long Beach is highlighted in that color of blue because we were trying to denote that as one of those comprehensive improvement schools.
But in
But
that
it's
case,
not-
blue is not the traffic light.
Right. It's just a way of highlighting that those are standalone schools
Oh,
that need more comprehensive work than just targeted areas of light, medium, heavy.
But the
back
shading
to
on
your-
the drawings is tied to the key, but the words are not.
Right.
so for like, let's look at Old Post real quick. So that's that light green is that area of the building is light renovation scope. But
Correct.
then there's a part that could also be a
Yes.
new construction.
Correct.
So they don't just have one designation. They could have more than one designation.
Yes, right.
Okay.
Yep, yep.
Thank you. Oh, I see now. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, and then one quick note, some of the areas are in gray, and that's because even though they might not be getting renovation work to solve an educational need, they're still getting the capital needs and repair and improvements that were identified in phase 1.
Are there areas of any of the schools that don't need attention?
Yeah, so that's pretty much the gray areas from an
Okay.
educational alignment standpoint. They still need some capital repairs that were identified in phase 1, like infrastructure needs.
But I see if I keep on scrolling, for example, like the high schools, I can see some areas that are just white, and so that would indicate really like there'd be no touch to those, except they'd be impacted by maybe some of the infrastructure stuff that we would plan on doing.
Yeah, the high schools, because they're such big campuses, those are more targeted areas of improvement, and there's simply areas of the building that from walls and doors might remain as is, but would be improved over time. And two other quick notes on this last slide too. So we talked about the high schools as like targeted areas of improvement, but we also included the building on Route 71. That's also highlighted, probably should be highlighted in purple just to be clear, but as a comprehensive building. And then we did identify some growing program needs. So there's some expansion opportunities at Brokaw for the expanded programming needs of the early learning program.
I like the soundtrack behind us from the guard out practicing.
Makes it exciting.
All right, so kind of a reminder about when we talk about capital investment and the planning and the implementation, we're adopting a framework. So this is a playbook or a plan that can last 10 or more years. And it's your total need, and there's options. So you'll see numbers coming up, and that's a total, right? But that doesn't mean we're not doing everything. And we are still in the process as we move along to create priorities and organize and analyze all the information. So we have, we're at the plan where we kind of collected all the data and created this whole 10-year plan. And there's more work. This is the beginning of the next phase, right? So just kind of a asterisk there.
So just this is I'm a construction novice, okay? I know. So we know, like the things that are of need, right? We've already been presented with that information. And then these are things that to improve our the functioning of our building in order to improve scores, right? In order to satisfy the needs of our children better. Is there any relationship? Is there any synergies by doing both at the same time? Like,
yeah.
Okay. So the numbers that you're going to present, are those like assuming these synergies, or are these we fix something and then 3 years later we do what probably could have benefited with the synergies?
So the point of a long range plan is so you're doing these as efficient as possible. So when we look at the planning and we look at phase 1 versus phase 2, we kind of layer them together and create projects that are combined, and that'll happen with the implementation and the phasing there. But if we look at, for example, if we look at the high schools and looking at the putting a library, and we're saying, okay, this also needs lighting and a mechanical upgrade and new flooring. Let's do that all at the same time, because if you have someone out there doing the pricing, you bid it at once, it's all going to be much more efficient and cost effective. So those are kind of parts and pieces of how we looked at this and how we kind of layered it together. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, I appreciate that we still have to prioritization kind of exercise. I'll let you continue.
All right.
Yeah.
Thanks for that. That was a good question. So I think we said it again, this is a long-term plan. So it's multi-years. All of this doesn't happen at once. We have to kind of backing off that. We organize a plan into manageable phases. So we have to make sure first that your school can be still running. You're still using these buildings, and that we're doing this based on urgency, impact, and readiness, and also priorities. So we kind of will create criteria, teaming with the district, to reassess their priorities and create priorities throughout the process. So these can change as the years go on, right? We knew that COVID threw a big wrench in everyone's priorities. We don't know if something like that might happen again. Times change, so really the plan is meant to be changeable and adjustable. And then, we'll analyze funding strategies and create operational efficiencies as we move forward. So, you might get more energy efficiency and save money there. How long we put something new product in, for example, carpet in your hallways, maybe not the most life cycle effective cost. You're replacing that X amount of years. Maybe you have a better material. We'll look at all those things when we start implementing this plan. Lower maintenance, all these things are going to be considered when we look at this plan.
I don't know, the carpet stories, I'm sure we've all heard them. So,
and then last, throughout this whole thing, we're not done, engaging with you in the community. We want to make sure the stakeholders are, there throughout the entire process as we adjust the plan. So the way we kind of broke this down, we had 4 budget categories, and I'll go deeper into them. But the first is capital repairs and infrastructure. 2 is safety and security. 3 is educational environment. So that's really what Steve was talking about with all those changes within the buildings and learning. And the last is capacity and comprehensive reconfigurations, which is also, in those plans, those blue buildings that have bigger pools. I'll go into detail on each one in the next slides. So the first is capital repair and infrastructure. So this is really the phase 1 process that Tim and the McKinstry team really helped implement and had really great data for back in June. So you can see some photos there of some elements in your buildings that just need maintenance and repair. This is really about your facilities, the age. Does the HVAC unit need to be repaired? Is it time to replace your roof? Do your windows need replacing? Your carpet? And things of that nature. So we know that over 77% of the budget is HVAC, roofing, and flooring, like I just mentioned. And as Andre said earlier, about 16 of your 22 buildings were built between 2001 and 2008. So all of those are coming up in replacement and just maintaining your buildings in 2028. So those are kind of really big key items. And this is probably the only one that really does have, because of the nature of the facility condition, it has a life cycle cost and recommendations of when your units or your systems need to be replaced. So that does have that breakdown of the years and the cost per that amount of years. The next is safety and security improvements. This is improvements. So the district as a whole has done a really great job with safety and security. I know a couple of years ago you added the secure phone in the outside of your buildings. You have card readers. So this is really about enhancing what you already have, getting the most updated cameras and systems. And really, we know that families want a safe environment, and really your students already feel safe and comfortable in their building. So we're just kind of enhancing that in this section. The third is educational environment. So we'll break this down similarly to what we did with Steve with all the different areas. So elementary schools, I think, as we stated before, STEAM and gymnasium separation, or really an outdoor learning were the key learning environment items. And what parents and families prioritized. And as we said before, the gym cafetorium was a big item at some of these newer elementary schools, and really separating that and creating separate spaces were something that the parents also really reflected on.
The itemization, is that available to our administration? You know, like what sums up to that dollar amount? Is that available to us already or no?
Not yet. We will be implementing. So at the end of this, we create a book. It's five sections. If you want to read through the whole thing, it's a big book, and it has all the data and all the backup of how we got to the numbers, what we got to.
Okay.
Yeah. Second is junior high. So as we stated before, STEAM, again, with these computer labs was a big point that all the parents and even students outlined. Outdoor and flexible learning was important as well. And students wanted active and social spaces. So they really want to collaborate with each other. I will note that all these junior high, elementary, they don't include the comprehensive renovation. So this is just the newer building. So it doesn't include Thompson in this one. That's another slide in a different category. So I don't want you to be shocked by that.
That slide, yeah.
Oswego High School, the students, I don't know if this is true, you could tell us, throughout this and East really wanted bathrooms updated. So that was one part. Focusing on STEAM was important, and CTE spaces, as well as collaborative learning. And I think they really wanted, they also want a cafeteria space at Oswego High School, because I know that if students feel crowded, they want more space to have different options of where to sit and to study and to collaborate. Both high schools, like we said before, really, even the students really talked about parking in the exterior, site, as well as the fields and getting improvements there. Yeah. Yeah.
And then another thing, a huge there's like a huge lineup, I'm pretty sure, like to get a spot, but so it can be like really competitive and to get a spot. And I'm pretty sure I was just whenever I come to school every day, there's been a decrease in employment, I think, for the people who the traffic workers. So getting a space also impacts that as well. So yeah, I think there's been a kind of people who want change in the parking space, and definitely in the bathrooms too. I mean, it's kind of more whatever concerns there are, I mean, it really be addressed. So I just feel sometimes the bathrooms are a little bit smaller, but that's one thing. And actually one of the interesting things is if you go all the way to that side of the building, there's one bathroom that's way bigger than the other ones over there. So that is one weird thing. I don't know why that's not. I don't know.
I wish
why.
I could go into the brain of the people who designed it.
But yeah.
Those are good comments, and you actually echoed a lot of what we heard from your fellow students and families too. Bathrooms and parking and vehicular traffic, I think, were two constant priorities we heard.
All right. Just kind of hit on East already, because are you East or West? Okay. Traffic and parking here as well. We know that the juniors don't all get parking spots, and it's a lottery. So kind of getting every student who can drive a spot would be ideal. Really, they talked about they really enjoy. You have a newer school. You have a lot of collaborative and flexible environments that you guys enjoy, but even more is always needed or nice to have. And that's switch the slide. Thank you. And again, the bathrooms, and then better spaces for performance, fitness, and creativity. Final slide. So this is really about the comprehensive reconfiguration. So we pulled all these separate because these kind of have a bigger, well, we know these are older buildings. These kind of to create the learning environments and also to upgrade all the facility needs, really create a bigger pull and need. So we have Boulder Hill and Long Beach, which are both elementary schools, which if you look at the planning, we show some additions to the administration areas and the cafeteria addition in both areas, and then a kind of upgrade throughout the entire building to get all your spaces up to the learning environments, and we need to do that in terms of the lighting, the fire alarm, your PA system. So there's a lot of systems that we overlap that is, really great to do at once. Thompson's similar. Space-wise are in good condition, but they have, some really missed opportunities with this big hallway. They have the STARS program there that kind of in classrooms. So kind of getting this school up to date is the same. And 308 extension, there's classroom renovations to, meet the needs of those students. Separation, creating clear, entrances for each where where you're supposed to go, and then separate from the district office, and making sure those students have the correct secure sequences and correct spaces. They also have a lot of shared spaces that they could maybe have separate or updated, such as right now the cafeteria is also the library, so creating designated spaces there is important. One thing, there's some capacity notes, and this is a separate study that Dr. Kincaid is kind of heading up with RSP and Associates, so we'll see more from that. But we did account for additions that are options in terms of early learning at Old Post and Brokaw, if that's a need in the future for expansion of those programs. So as we said before, some of these are kind of big picture options. That doesn't mean everything's going to happen, but we're just kind of saying, this is what your a la carte list, and it's a starting point, and we have to narrow it down from there.
I want to echo that what's been achieved here is moving out of the squeaky wheel syndrome. And what I mean by that is when you've got a district as large as this, you don't have a comprehensive plan that really takes everything into account, from the facility assessment done by McKinstry, and start to really think about how you protect the resources. When I landed in this district 2.5 years ago, some of your colleagues at other architectural firms came by and said, hey, if it wasn't for our schools, you wouldn't have the development of this area, right? You wouldn't have the level of economic interest. You wouldn't have folks, even, in some of the more, middle-aged to retired places that are building here, right? The value comes from what's surrounding it and what's driven that economic engine here. So I think it's really important to underscore that this attention is crucial. And I want to invite Mr. Murray, who's been in one of those buildings where has been under, a lot of pressure and stress for a long time. And I think, can you speak a little bit about what you've seen as a long-serving principal here in the district, and how this approach may have been different than what you may have experienced before thus far? So if you could speak to that, please.
And I think I could a little bit. I did spend 3 years at Hunt Club in years 2, 3, and 4 when it was new. And just seeing the differences in the buildings, and kind of over the years, just starting my 13th year at Long Beach, and the number of issues that have popped up, because it is, the second or third oldest in the district. And I think just giving our students the best opportunity that everybody else has. That's what we hear a lot at our building, is we don't have as much space as everybody else. So I think part of this plan, while we were going through all of this, it was all taken into account that we want to get the best facilities for all of our students too. And I think that's why there's differences in so many. But it's that learning environment that the kids can be proud of. And I think we've taken a lot of input from our students, that I think if we can turn that input around into action, I think they would see that pride too. And this goes on, I know earlier when you're looking at the budget, the years 2031 and 32 seem like far away, but that will get everything ready for those students when they come too. So it is a long term on here, and thanks for pointing out how long I've been here too.
Mr. Obafemi, do you want to build on that a little bit as you look at this?
Yeah, so since I lead the operations team, we're the folks who spend a lot of time trying to put Band-Aid on our buildings. And it's not for lack of effort. What has happened over the years is the district has had significant financial challenges. And when that happens, folks in charge have to make a decision. And it's easy to make a decision to defer maintenance on buildings, because buildings don't talk. Buildings don't have parents who are going to come and protest. But what happens is when you defer maintenance, though, over time, it becomes much more expensive. And that is what we're saying here. So over the years, in order to be able to balance the budget or to have enough money to do other things, the buildings were just not been taken care of. And it's just gotten to a point right now that we absolutely need to do something about it. Because the window envelopes right now, they're in bad shape and things are just falling apart, like rooftop unit that keeps our building warm or cold. When they go out, those are expensive machines. They're about the size of an 18-wheeler truck. So to fix one of them is about $1 million. And if you have 5 of them in a building, if you need to fix all 5 of them, you see how much you got to pay for that. And the other part is, on average, our buildings are about 200,000 square foot. And when you have a building that big, you have a number of roofs. I mean, huge roof that covers that kind of building. And to even fix one section of that building, you're looking at 2 to 3 million, one section. And in a lot of cases, you may have 6 to 8 sections of the building that you need to fix. So there are so many patches you can apply to those roofs. It gets to a point those don't work anymore. And I think an example would be Long Beach, where Mr. Murray is the principal at. So I just give that as an example that over the years, the folks who are here, they've done a lot of things that they can do, but they've been limited by the amount of financial resources available to them to be able to fix the buildings. And the fact that those buildings, a lot of them were built at the same time doesn't help too, because now they all need TLC. And it's harder to choose what you fix, what you don't fix, when a lot of your buildings need to be fixed at the same time. Thank you.
Are we asking questions now?
Oh, there's one more slide, actually.
Oh.
Sorry. Then we can ask questions.
Well, you can ask questions whenever you want. Yeah, I mean,
My questions are, with the older buildings that we have, Long Beach, Boulder Hill, Thompson, the building on 71, are they at a position where it may be more cost effective to tear them down, or is it more efficient to renovate them? I mean, obviously there's
I think
logistical needs, but
So you,
what was that? When we did the phase 1 portion, there was something pulled called the FCI score, which kind of told you the amount of money you need to repair in the next 10 years compared to the overall, if you want to build a new building. And unless it was over 30% that you need to basically upgrade or swap out, that kind of pulled that's not worth, creating a new building. So that was, none of your buildings were at that point. Maybe some of them were teetering close, but all of them were below that threshold. So that's how we made those decisions.
so as far as they age, things like foundations and foundations and like underground sewers and all that stuff is still going to be usable for the foreseeable future.
I think that you have to maintain it as you go along. So that's part of your plan. But at this point, that's something that's not all, you don't have to do all that at once. You can plan of when you need to create those updates.
I think an example of that would be, for example, Oswego High School's sewer system, not the sewer system, but the piping system is connected with the city.
Yeah.
Right, with Oswego. And so we actually, that's more of a partnership work where we have to think about our draining system. Is that correct, Mr. Obafemi? That it's really more connected to our drain system than it is a unique problem with our sewer system. Those are interconnected problems and require some shared work.
And in that case, in that particular example, we're actually working to get that figured out. If you remember, in August, we had that flood at the gym that we had to replace. Now, we've engaged a civil engineer to hire a contractor to put a camera through the pipe to see, is there an obstruction? Is the obstruction on our side, or is it on the municipal side? So when we find out the result of that, we'll have a better feel for what is causing that backup.
Okay, I have another question. There's a lot of talk about parking issues at the high schools. Would there be enough space on the current properties to accommodate that, or are we looking at needing to acquire more land?
Currently, we're showing your existing property. That being said, we haven't done the full analysis of your stormwater needs. So that might be something that we'll have to look at when we do that project of kind of what's the domino effect of putting a parking lot somewhere. So we'll have to determine what the best spot is on the site.
And that's part of establishing the criteria, right? So how does, parking is important, but when we look back to what we're really bringing to the board is saying, here's what the community, here's what our staff, here's what we've learned around how we validate what becomes urgent, costly, what are the efficiencies. So what you're really looking at, as you mentioned a couple times, is a framework. So how do we start to think about these problems systematically and then prioritize them? Because, I think there are certain problems, for example, when you have significant heating and cooling issues in a building, that's a very important issue compared to, yes, a very important issue around parking, but one is a day-to-day, I wouldn't say parking is not day-to-day for the student who's upset or concerned, but parking issue is going to have less of an influence on that day-to-day instructional priority, I would say. That's what I would say. Yeah. I know you get it, but
keeping the students in their seats
Correct.
learning versus
Correct.
other improvements. I'm done now.
I'll have more questions, but I'll let you continue.
Well, and I wanted to make another quick kind of point. If it weren't obvious, the costs that were up there are total project costs, not just construction cost. And what we mean by that is when you build a project, you've got the cost that the contractor would bid to build the building, but there's everything from permitting to professional fees, furnishings, technology equipment. So I just wanted to bring that up because I wasn't sure when I've heard everybody reflect on numbers and the work and things like that. I want to make sure that was clear.
Since you mentioned those numbers, I'll ask one question, then I might have some more questions after these next steps. I heard like in the presentation, like this is the big picture list. So this is everything in the bucket, right? And so those numbers indicate what it would cost if we did everything in the bucket. Is that right? So we might hear scenarios where we might do something less than what's in the bucket. Am I reading these next steps right? Because I just added.
And
I'm saying that not maybe possibly the board will consider different options, but possibly we might not do all of the things that are on this presentation.
Yeah, prioritization
Consequentially, we
exercise,
might
what's
not
important to us,
have to
community.
go for all of those millions of dollars.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And I think, and I'm sorry, I think the way it was presented, I think, Needy, what you said was it was the a la carte version. It's not necessarily everything, but it's like, these things will cost this, A, B, C, and D.
Yeah.
Pick what you want.
I think that's important for the community that's listening in, right? That this is not a final presentation of what we're going to.
Yeah, they're going to itemize. They're going to have
Right.
an itemization of each of those buildings, and
Yeah.
not just a physical or not just a picture that I still don't understand, which is fine.
Because money is a consideration, as we all aware. And we don't have a limited finance, so we will have to make decisions
Yeah.
based on what
we
would be
think is best.
considered critical, right? And then go from there.
yeah, the hope is that as you look at it, there's prioritization, there's also time. So one of the points we were going to make on the next steps is we've issued this presentation and this information. We're going to have a more comprehensive report. We're going to receive feedback from you, and we're going to kind of incorporate that. And then we're going to begin to look at what are the most critical needs that are pressed up against time. So you might remember some of the detail we've shown you in the past, that there were periods of time associated with them, particularly category 1, the physical conditions, things that really need to be done in the next couple of years, things that need to be done in 3 to 5 years. And then 5 to 10, I think those were approximately the categories we were looking at. So there's So as we look at funding priorities, we're really going to focus on that first 5 years. You're going to, as we get into this further, you're going to see that. But you don't want to forget also that there's a strategic plan and a lot of educational goals that are important too, and all the great work that's been done that was presented tonight with student success and student experience on a day-to-day basis is impacted by some of the money that you're even going to spend in your physical conditions like carpet and paint and other things like that, and other aspects that really didn't get discussed today. Furniture makes a huge difference in delivering education today versus what you've experienced in the past. So there are things that could contribute in a really important way that we're going to want to help you understand and then work to prioritize. We're also going to be able to spend some time evaluating different ways that funding happens and how that is compartmentalized over time, if that makes sense. So there's some work to be done on that. And analyze the funding scenarios, look at critical needs, and continue to seek community input, get a task force together that is cross-representational of the community so we can begin to evaluate ideas and get a better understanding of how that's been reflecting. Look at some potential additional surveys and things that where we can gather the kind of input that's going to begin to give a sense of the broad-based support for and what makes the biggest difference for your community. So that is really our goal, and I think really our next step is the December 8th board meeting. That's where you would be adopting the plan. In other words, adopting that framework, that playbook, and then in some senses the hard work starts again, because we have to break that back apart with the detail and put it together the way I just described.
I'll go last. I'll let you.
But we're here
might
and
ask my
happy to
questions.
answer more questions.
Can we clarify what we're going to be asked on, what we're going to be presented on the December 8th meeting, and what, can we get some clarification? Because I hear you saying like there's going to be a framework, right? And
This is the framework.
this is the framework.
We have an executive summary that we're working on
So the
that
plan
will
of-
provide some more detail, get into a little bit more detail about organizing the results and things like that, some charting of the priorities and the needs.
So
and the
are we
Like a timeline?
Are we voting on a plan, not a? That's about it. Not the funding or the timeline or anything along those lines. Not the prioritization.
What,
Is that-
yeah, I don't
That's
understand.
correct. You're adopting the framework.
So basically, let's just.
I don't understand. Are we
You're-
adopting?
It's
are we
basically a
saying-
strategic plan for the buildings.
Correct. So this essentially say, we've identified the framework, which are four major, the categorization, right? That these are established. And then within that are the priorities of how we would work to address in terms of our planning. So
Are we voting on something, or are we just adopting something? I don't know. It feels different to me to like consider a plan of action when to vote on a plan of action if we haven't considered funding scenarios and a calendar of when things are going to get done and things like that. I don't know what the rest other
Well,
board
I
members
think
are
They have
thinking.
somewhat of a calendar.
Okay.
But yeah, I'll let you.
I'll start with
So
Superintendent
what
Nelson.
you normally do with long-range facility planning is a comprehensive plan of how to, what kind of facility the district, what kind of condition the district's facilities are. And then that's one thing. And then you have the educational plan, envisioning where we are now, looking into the future. What do we want our buildings to look like? And then you go even further. You look at engaging the stakeholders to see what kind of input they want to provide in that study. And then you put pricing on the framework, if you will. And that becomes a template for the board to approve and say, based on the information that we receive, this is how we want to move forward, right? And then the other part after the board approves that, is how do we pay? Number one, what do we prioritize? And of the critical things that we prioritize out of this whole framework, how do we fund it? That will be the next step. Does that help?
So I think the friction I'm feeling in my thoughts are that we're going to think about approving this framework, which does have numbers and money, money numbers attached to it. And some of the conversation and the comments that we had about this being all the possibilities are on our list. So so the ask is that we consider a framework that includes all the possibilities. And then
We don't attach any funding. I think that might be the that might be the answer.
But we have money attached to it.
But we don't attach any funding. Maybe that's.
I know, but there's a cost.
So the estimated cost to all those things.
No, I get it. I'm trying to bridge. I'm not succeeding.
So the estimated cost to all those framework. But by voting on it, we're not saying, the board is not saying, go out and do this and spend this money.
I understand that. Yeah.
So it's a framework. It's no different like what Erica said. It's a strategic plan for our buildings. And then once you accepted that, then you start thinking about, okay, of all these items, how do we prioritize? Once we prioritize that, how do we fund the priorities? That's a different conversation.
Well, I guess coming from project management, when we're planning, we typically talk about how we're going to fund. So like, for instance, when we talk about the junior high school at 59.2 million, those conversations such as deliverables, what have you, would all be encompassed in that 59.2 million ask. So I guess kind of maybe to her point, how do we kind of break that apart to understand what that looks like? Does that make sense?
Right. So it does. So what it is if everything were equal and all the suggestions that were made from the facility assessment, from the educational assessment, from thinking about the future, this is how much everything is going to cost, right? But we know those are just framework, right? Then you are proving the framework of the work that is being done with assessment, with input, with design, everything. And then we'll look at, based on how much that we can get to be able to make this happen, and based on the importance of the different items that are put in the framework, you identify what are the key things that you want to manage now. If you remember, they said 10 years. It's over 10 years. So we'll look at what are the immediate things that we want to do within maybe a year to 5 years, based on the criticalness, if you will, of those items. And then we try to figure out, how do we get funding for those things?
Raphael, go ahead, Brandon.
But shouldn't we have an idea of what that is, right? In my head, I feel like we're kind of putting the cart before the horse. So we're giving this framework, right? And we are understanding the scope and the different variables that come with it. But I think to
Dr. Marios.
Mary Jo, sorry.
Oh,
the a la carte perspective, how do we incorporate that now so when we go to the planning portion of it on December 8th, we know what we are approving or what the true framework is really going to be? Not just because I say it like this, the strategic plan is very thorough, rigorous, right? It gives you an idea of all the pillars and so forth. So we understand and are able to associate what's next, all the different phases, right?
But it doesn't include any costs. Like if you took the costs out of this, it would be the same thing.
But I think as a parent, and I see 59.2 million, my first question, again, just a parent, where's this money coming from? Much to what you just mentioned, right? That's going to be our next topics. However, I believe just in theory, we should have an understanding of like the now, right? Like what does that look like now? So if we were to go through the junior high schools, theoretically, would it be 30 million, right? Based upon we did X, Y, Z. I think maybe we should limit our scope before we move forward with an actual plan, if that makes sense.
It does, I guess. So here's the theoretical, so the numbers, and I would ask you all to speak, if you could, a little bit more about the numbers, because these are real costs that whether we approve or not, we may be facing these, right? So what this does is it actually gives us a coherent way to think about the range of costs that we're facing. To your point, Stu, can you, any of you, could you speak to a little bit about when you use the word framework? I think when we think about instructional framework, which are competencies that highlight. I think there's a semantic issue here too, which is this is really what are the priorities that emerge for us in our district about how to structure the next stage of what comes first, second, third, and fourth, right? So, and then how different is what you've done here with us compared to 204 that just approved a $450 million, lots of districts that you've been through. And I'm not proposing for anybody listening that we're going to do a 450 million referendum at all, right? So just no referendum in that context, right? In that way. But I just want to name, like, I think it's important if that for the public to understand that we are talking about a framework, really a prioritization of the work.
And if I can just add on to that,
Yeah.
wasn't there a report, a couple reports ago that kind of broke down what was kind of like 1 to 3 years and then 3 to 5 years, which started to put some of those kind of
Correct.
priorities in
and
place.
that's what's in here, actually. Yeah.
I think maybe before you respond, I think the friction in my mind is when I vote on something
Yes.
as someone who's representing the public, and we've seen a presentation where numbers are attached. Like, what are we promising to the public in regard to our vote? So if we're voting on a framework, and one of my fellow board members made the comparison to the strategic plan, you're right, there's no numbers attached to that strategic plan, but we just saw something with some numbers attached to it. But if I think about it through that lens, that makes sense. But are we going through the strategic plan then and saying, yeah, we might not be able to do this, 3 years down the road, we might say, oh, we might not be able to do this because we don't have the funds to do so. And is that the same process that we're going to take on here? Like, we approve a framework that includes everything that we've seen tonight. And then are we prioritizing everything that's in the bucket, or are we thinking about, do we need to take stuff out of the bucket? That's, I guess, my question. One of my questions.
I'm going to lean on our experts who've done this more than I have.
I'm going to add to just the importance of making sure that the plan is a comprehensive long-range plan, because if we were to leave stuff out of the bucket, that doesn't do you a service in terms of how you plan it to.
That's fine. I just
Right.
want to know that we're voting on everything in the bucket.
Yeah, I think
If the answer is yes, that's fine.
comprehensive need and vision for the facilities over the next 10 plus years. I think that's really what you're adopting is that playbook.
Okay.
Typically, what phase one of implementing a plan typically is much less than the total need, just because it's often that you do it in phases too. So what phase one might be in a sister district, it's actually much less than their total need that they identified in their comprehensive plan.
Okay.
And it might take 5+ years or closer to 10-year mark to get to phase two. So it's often a phased kind of implementation and that's really tied into the funding strategy and what you could do up front. But it's important that it was comprehensive so you could plan accordingly.
Thank you. And if it's let's say, I think again, I love the comparison to our strategic plan, because we've talked about our strategic plan as a living document. So let's say we get through the first 5 years and we've been able to secure funding and do all these things, and then we're at a different point in 5 years. The economy's different, population different, growth has changed. This can be a living document, for lack of a better term.
Exactly what it is.
Okay, that is helpful.
We're not voting on the steps over the next 10 years.
Yeah, I just want to make sure when we vote, we're promising to the public. We're adopting a framework that in our current moment demonstrates what our facility needs are. And we are also, in that vote or in that adoption, dedicating ourselves to viewing this as a living document.
Yes.
Okay.
Can I ask a quick question? The numbers that you have in here from the 1 to 2, and then you've got 6 to 10, those include inflation and increasing costs over time.
Yes.
Okay.
But just to be honest, though, no one knows what
Right,
inflation
right.
is going to do. I think we use a baseline number. They use a baseline number, and best available right now.
Yeah.
And there's a way to adjust that based on what inflation is going to do.
Anybody else?
So maybe just one more kind of cap on that. There was a slide with 7 ideas on it. We call them guiding design principles. Do you agree with that vision for the district that at the end of the 10 years or however long it takes to do it, that would reflect the values and be a way to, and I know those were very brief statements. We've
It's
written them in
page
longer
13.
format
Yeah.
as well. They don't tell you everything because at the end of the day, there are some physical conditions that have to be addressed. Otherwise, we won't be addressing the immediate needs for maintenance and things like that. But on the other hand, there are different ways to achieve the goals that are the principles that are outlined in there, even though it may not be physically done in exactly the same way.
Yeah.
And many of our clients even over a 5-year period of time, it changes. And we had a client that decided they wanted to explore a referendum, and they realized their community would not support that. So we changed the way that we would implement the plan, even though our original plan had some budget numbers on it. We changed the way we looked at it and the order in which we were looking at it so that they could achieve it over a little bit longer period of time in smaller bites and pieces.
That's exactly
if
it.
that makes a sense. Yes, it's a flexible plan. It changes.
Yeah.
And if the ideas are the right ideas, the buckets are the right buckets, we'll work with you, we'll be with you for that 5 to 10 year period of time and make that happen.
Yeah, I appreciate that.
So we are essentially committing to the framework, but not timelines to get this done. And
That's right.
there's a lot of flexibility in this, but it's just an overarching idea where we say, yes, we agree to what the vision is, and we are adhering to what the input the community has already given us, but we're not committing to a timeline necessarily. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yes.
Okay.
So I just had a couple basic comments. So we've had some discussions about, over the years, deferred maintenance and things along those lines. I just wrote down deferring is not a cost saving strategy. And then I think about my priorities and I look at that and I'm going to, the way I look at this, and I'm not trying to speak for everybody, it's what needs to happen, and then student achievement and long-term projects that can pay for itself. So those are kind of the things that and then after that, the things that instill pride, like pride and student achievement. Yes, there's probably some tie, but is it $100 million worth of student achievement? Or could we do that with, other ways? So I'm when it's all said and done, we're here for student achievement. So that's just kind of the way I think about it. And
I just underscore that, you asked, I think, do you agree with these principles? And I think, yes. And I think, I just want to underscore, I think the process has been really thorough, so I appreciate it. I just want to make sure that when, as a board, we consider things in front of the public, that we understand and they understand what we're committing to. And I appreciate it.
And to kind of piggyback off of that statement, the alignment with the strategic plan is really helpful, not only for the vision, but also for kind of the marriage between the growth of both our students and what they're accomplishing, academically and personally in our district with kind of the mirrored growth of the facility. So I do really appreciate the organization and thought you put into that structure. But I also, I appreciate the conversation as well. So thank you.
The only concern I have, and I'm sorry, this just goes back to project management and just dealing with this on a day-to-day basis, is just the timeline, right? Typically in our planning scope, right, we're always talking about the timeline. So granted, we're gearing 10 years, but in reality, we say within the first year, we're going to do X, Y, Z as far as allocating resources. Different dependencies may come up. So I guess in my frame of reference and dealing just with project management and so forth, timeline is so critical because that allows you to know if you're meeting the mark or you're not meeting the mark. So granted, yes, we may not be sitting here 10 years and our kids may not be here, but I think it's going to be pivotal to understand what is happening within the first year, second year, third year to equate to the 259 million that, to your point, we may have to do X, Y, Z in order to gather that, particular monetary value in order to move forward with this particular plan. Does that make sense? Or again, it's just more the timeline. I'm kind of
It does. Whether we're talking about design or whether we're talking about infrastructure, Needy and I do a lot of different types of project management. So we appreciate what you're saying. Steve focuses a lot on design, but even then, he has to have a plan, and it has to make sense, and it has to be knitted together. So that is really the more detailed part of what you said is really the next step. This is complex. I mean, you can see that there's 4 dimensions of the categories of cost. You've got 23 plus buildings, and you've got seven ideas that really are going to inspire students in your educational delivery within these structures. And we have to work with you to prioritize that and come up with the right combination of that meets your budgets, that's fundable, and that is going to reflect the values of your community in the future.
So let me just ask, hypothetically, if you were to choose a particular school based upon having no timeline, what would that initial school be that we start connecting these dots to based upon the framework and so forth that we've been presented to tonight? And again, hypothetically, since again, we have no timeline and so forth on in the planning phase.
I don't
what
know
would
if
that
I'd
look like?
pick a school. I'd probably pick a category, and that'd be with category 1, because that has timelines associated with it. So you'd start with that, and that's the infrastructure and physical conditions and the maintenance items you have in your buildings. That's kind of so that's why we number them that way. 1 is this is the what you're going to start with. Next is security and safety, and then 3 is the learning environment. 4 is a comprehensive. So the last 2 kind of go hand in hand, but the first 2 are really the critical ones I'd start looking at first. And those kind of have years associated with them because your systems have a very direct life cycle and when you need to replace those. So that's the starting point that we would take when we start looking at the priorities.
I think it's also important to notice that we don't want to start messing with the pretty things with the roof still leaking because it's going to ruin any work that we do. So the priority needs to stay on the building envelopes and making sure the buildings are waterproof, really. So
That makes sense, but
I never
again,
heard it
I think it
used.
goes back to the theory of a timeline, right? So to your point,
Yeah.
we can be sprinkling water going through a school, but is that going to be a critical point where we say, hey, how do we fix that? Or do we move to another more critical issue that may be happening with the boiler system at another school, right? So I get what you're saying, but I think it takes presence to understand what those steps are in order to ensure that we're doing right by the students that are in that school and our staff.
So that is articulated, and I thank you for underscoring that. That is articulated that we do have a timeline. It's pretty aggressive in terms of 1 to 2 years for some of these costs, right? Repairs, right? So there is a timeline in here saying that these are not things that can be ignored for very much longer. And we had a pretty thorough assessment of what those are, and to ensure that we are thinking about those. I hate to bring up well, we had our own roof, right? So we had our own Lockport moment, so to speak, right? Thankfully, didn't shut our buildings down for a longer period than 2 days, 3 days, right? We're very fortunate in that regard because we have a number of buildings and when you talk to our building engineers, they work extremely hard to keep our system going. It's like a 20-year car that they make it look like it's still running really well, but you talk to our building engineers, and they will tell you that we are playing with fire. And I hate to speak to that in that way, but they are working really hard to make sure that we are able to maintain our engineering systems. And Andre, and it's not for neglect, it's for really the level of support that's come through the years. They're very careful. They watch these things very carefully. They know every single nook and cranny. And so I would argue that we have a very thorough, well articulated, I guess you could say, plan of action here around the years and the kinds of things we'll have to invest in and what comes first, second, third. Now, down to the month categories, we haven't gotten there, but in terms of a broad category of a timeline, and what we would bring to the board next, and this is really, this first phase is to say, here are the things that we've identified through community, through public, through engagement. What comes next then is then the more, as you've said, well-defined plan. But have we gotten to this? Does this make sense for the board is the question that Dominic has named, right? Does this make sense? Did we miss a category somehow, right? That we like pest control. Nobody has in here like, removing all the, birds in the roof or something. So,
Well, I would like it to tie, I'd like it to tie to expected achievement gains and, those are the types of things. And if it's an investment type of situation, kind of like a field, what would the savings be annually to pay that back? And those are the types of things that I would want to know. But that I don't know, need to know today. But as we were deciding which checks to cut and which projects to take on, that's what I'm going to look at.
Okay, that's helpful.
And I just want to clarify for timeline, the only slide I see the timeline on is for that first area of work, right? So
Yes.
when you're referring to a timeline, you're referring to that.
Yes.
The other ones will,
Yes.
okay.
Yes. Those are the most urgent,
Okay.
critical.
And those are the ones that we know should be taken care of. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, all great
Anybody
questions.
else?
Dr. Kincaid, did you want to? Okay. Teresa?
Great discussion. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you all.
I got to do something. All right. 11.3. 2025 tax levy adoption cycle. And
Okay. I want to thank, next up, we want to invite Mr. Obafemi to talk about a really important part of our work here, which is our tax levy adoption cycle.
Thank you, Dr.
Thank you.
Kogati. And Mr. President.
Good night.
It's that time of the year again when, as a school district, we are required to prepare tax levy to be approved by the board. So the 2025 tax levy is what is being presented tonight. So this is the levy adoption cycle. Today is the 17th, which is the presentation that we put before the board today. And then on the 28th of November, we have an ad copy that is going to be published by the major newspapers here. And then on December 8th at the next board meeting, we will do a truth in taxation and the adoption of the tax levy resolution. And then once that is done, it will be filed at the 3 counties that we levy from the last Tuesday of December, which this year happens to be December 30th. So the levy, I think it's important to kind of clarify. A lot of time folks get it confused. They believe the levy is the actual amount that we get from the county treasurers where we actually levy. The levy is actually an ask. And what is actually sent out to taxpayers is the tax extension, which is the actual amount that we'll get. And there's always a difference between the levy and what an extension is. One of the key factors in determining what the levy is the CPI. And that came into being with the PTEL law that was passed back in 1991 and it applied to us in the Collier County in 1994. And another term that I think is important to keep in mind is the equalized assessed value. And that's really all the taxable properties in the municipality where we levy. So the final levy amount, as I mentioned earlier, is what we asked for, but then that is subject to PTEL. We cannot, and the PTEL law require that the maximum amount that can be actually be extended by the county clerk is 5% or CPI. Even if CPI is higher than 5%, which it was a couple of years ago, the most we can receive is actually the 5%. But in the 2025 levy, the CPI, which is the December 2024 CPI, is actually 2.9. That is the inflationary factor that the county clerk will use. And then the board is required to adopt that levy before we file it with the county clerk in the 3 counties. So I wanted to kind of show the process that the levy goes through. We develop the budget as a taxing district, and then the board approves it, and then it goes to, during that time though, even though we're required to do the levy now, the whole taxing process is just in the beginning. None of this will be finalized till July of 2026, even though we are required to submit it right now on December 30th. So we have to make a lot of assumptions. And I think sometimes that gets confusing with a taxpayer who thinks whatever it is that we levy is what we expect to get. That could not be farther from the truth. So I showed a sample of how a property tax is calculated in a residential, I mean, really in any property. So you have the market value. The market value is actually a baseline number. And then then that's multiplied by 1/3. And then in a residential tax bill, the homeowner gets, just about every homeowner gets a general homestead exemption, which reduces the amount of the property tax bill. And there are other exemptions that are out there, the veterans exemption, the senior citizen exemptions that can be added on top of that. And then what you deduct that from that and you get the taxable EAV. And then you get the tax rate, you multiply that by the tax rate. So what you get in this particular case for a house that is at a market value of $400,000, you have a tax amount of $6,841. So essentially the tax rate, the multiplier tax rate is $5.37 for each $100 of EAV. Please ask me any questions as we go along. And this is the funding source based on the FY26 budget. The largest source of revenue for the district is actually property tax, which is why it's very important. And the next source of revenue is evidence-based funding. And then you have other local funds, then you have federal and other sources. Okay. So property tax is an important part of how we get the money to be able to run the district. So just to show the relationship between the levy and the budget, we develop the budget, and then the revenue that we actually get from property taxes crosses 2 fiscal years. This levy that I'm presenting before the board tonight, the first installment we will get in June of 2026, which will be fiscal year 2026. The second installment is actually the real amount from the 2025 levy. The first installment that we get, since the appeal process is not settled till July, what the treasurer will do is they will look at the 2024 levy, which will be the completed extension period, and they'll give us 50% of the completed amount. That's what we'll get in the first installment. The second installment will be after all the appeals have been completed. A taxpayer can appeal the assessment value of their property. If they don't like what the assessor says, they can go before the PTAL, Property Tax Appeal Board. And if they don't like that, then they can go before the circuit court. And that doesn't conclude till July. So after that is concluded, then we get the second installment in September. That's actually 50% of the actual amount from the 2025 levy. Then I mentioned CPI is the factor that is used to determine the maximum amount that we can get as a taxing body. Now, the CPI is really, it's a basket of expenditure that household that we spend money on. And one of the biggest factor of that is housing. Housing is a big factor. Utilities are another big factor. Food is another big factor. So those are the things that drive the CPI that we use. It's an inflationary factor for the levy calculation. And I just wanted to show the historical 10-year CPI. As you've seen, back in 2014, CPI was only 80 basis points. The following year after that was 70 basis points. And then if you look at the years right after, during the COVID, when inflation was really high in 2021, CPI was actually 7%. But as you heard me mention earlier, we were limited to just 5%. So even though the cost of the real things that we're buying as a district was 7%, most that we can actually levy for was 5%. The same thing in 2022. Then 23, which is the 2024 levy, was 3.4. The 25 levy was based on the December CPI, which is 2.9, which is what we will be using for the 2025 levy. And this is the same thing, just a different way of showing it. And then the different funds that we levy off of. The Ed Fund is the most versatile fund that the school district has. And that is what pays for the majority of the things. It pays for most of our educators' salaries and most of the expenditure that we have as a district. And operations is dedicated to the facility maintenance of the district. And then transportation, I think that speaks for itself. Special education, same thing. IMRF is the levy that we assess just to pay for non-licensed employees, such as a custodian, our maintenance folks, our support staff people. We levy for that, and that's what pays for the pension cost that they're entitled to. And then, of course, Social Security, working cash. Working cash is kind of like a bank that we levy from. So when the district needs to borrow money, we can borrow it from the working cash fund and then pay it back. Just to point out, the IMRF and Social Security, whatever is in that fund, can only be used for those purposes. We can't transfer it out. We can't use it for anything else. And we only require to levy exactly what we need for those two funds, not a penny more. So
Can you repeat that last thing? We're only required to levy
what we need for IMRF and Social Security.
That's the only requirement. Everything else is.
We can levy more than what we need for those two funds.
Okay, thank you.
Because they are restricted funds. You can't use the money for anything
Or anything else, yeah.
So the other big portion of the levy is bond and interest, which we kind of got a lesson about earlier. This is to pay for all outstanding debt that the district has. And just to point out, I know it's a significant amount of money, but the majority of that was borrowed back in 2006 when there was a referendum done, when the Kendall County at that time was the fastest growing county in the country. We needed to build about 12 schools all at the same time. So we issue, I believe, $250 million in bonds. Of that amount, we still have 185 million left in principal. The rest, I believe, is in interest. So the cost of servicing that is $36.8 million. And this is a comparison of the extension to levy. As I wanted to point out again, the extension was the actual amount that was that the taxpayers paid in 2024. The levy is not what we are going to get. And one thing that I want to point out why a lot of time we do what is called balloon levy is that we have to do the levy so early in the year before all the appeals are done that we have to just estimate. And a lot of time we have to overestimate. A big component of the amount that we request too is new construction. We do not know what new constructions are until the assessment period has been completed in July. But the downside of that is if we don't balloon, if you will, overestimate the amount that we will get for new construction, if we underestimate that, we lose that money forever. And the way the levy works, it builds on prior year extension. So if we under levy, then we will lose that the resources that we need to educate our children. And I dare say just about every district in Illinois balloon levy for that reason, because new constructions are unknown, but you have to estimate, you have to overestimate. Even if you overestimate, the only amount that you get is the actual assessed value of the new construction, not the estimate that you have. So if you look at that, I mentioned earlier that the increase that we're going to see this year is the PTEL of 2.9, but if you look at the bottom line, you see 7.02. That includes the balloon as well as the new construction. That's why it's high. But at the end of the day, the county clerk as well as the treasurer are limited by PTEL to the rate of inflation of December 2024, which is 2.9%.
So so basically the county clerk is going to tell us what the amount is going to be.
Yes,
I mean,
that's
it's
what
all
the
said and done.
extension is.
They don't.
That is the extension.
But if we said 1.5%, they would take that.
Yes, yes.
So we could say
always
50%, and they're going to turn around and say, "No, you're getting 2.9. What are you?"
That's exactly true. That's the law.
Can I ask a question just
Yes.
for my own education about levies? Why does this process exist rather than, I mean, I'm going to add to that question, rather than just the clerk extending to us what they've collected? Why is a public, like why? Why is that the case?
It's the way the law is written. It's the way the law is written.
It didn't have
But
to
would
make
there
sense.
is there any reason, like why couldn't, outside of being the law, it would make, there's a set amount that we're going to get as long as we ask for more.
Right.
Yeah, okay.
So another way of looking at it is this. There's only, if you look at Kendall County,
Yeah.
I can't even begin to tell you how many taxing bodies are in Kendall County. So asking the county clerk or the county treasurer to be responsible for calculating all those taxing bodies levy, just the county clerk's office have to be huge to be able to do that. So the responsibility is for the taxing authority to do the calculation based on what they need to run the entity. So as I mentioned earlier before, the budget drives the levy. We need X amount of money to be able to educate our kids, to be able to pay for everything that we need to provide a good education. Now, just to be clear, 80% of how much we need to be able to run a school district is tied to salary, the majority of whom are teachers and the administrators who work with those teachers.
Yeah. My question is not so much like why we need the money, it's just like the process seems, indirect. Thank you for the adjective, indirect.
It is
Because I
very
think
interesting.
especially when a taxpayer sees on their bill, right, that, okay, the school district's the largest taxing body and they tax me this amount. Well, then that's the amount you're getting, right?
Right.
That's the right, then you're getting from this house and this, and it seems like you just, sum the column, and that's what the school district would get, but doesn't, sounds like we as a taxing body, just the process requires us to advocate for what we need.
Right, right. And then there's the county clerk would then put adjustments on it based on PTEL, and also their rates limit to a lot of the funds too, by the way. So for example, the ed fund doesn't have a rate limit, but then the total amount that you can receive is capped. There's an aggregate amount that you can get. So you can distribute it. Some of the funds, as I mentioned earlier, IMRF, Social Security, there's a cap amount that you can get. So I can actually talk for a whole day about tax levy.
No, that was
It's a
good.
very involved
We're
and, process.
All right.
So as I mentioned, the levy represent a 7.02% increase over last year's extension, but rest assured, we will not get anywhere close to that. I think it's important for me to state this categorically because I think when someone is reading this without the deep understanding of how tax cap work, they can walk away and say, the school district is increasing my taxes by 7.02. That's not true.
Can I ask what drove that increase, the 7.2?
The 7 point is mainly new construction. We don't know what the value of new construction is. So what we're doing is we're ballooning the amount of money that we're asking for new construction. And then after the assessment period is complete in July, then the county clerk would know what the actual amount is. They'll add it to our extension.
Are you asking about why we're increasing the levy?
Correct, to the 7.2.
Right.
So like,
Because-
for instance, to your point, right, it's the housing, and other factors could be whether it's salary contracts,
No,
support,
that's-
special education. So in theory, right, it could be a premise of things, but to your point, as you just shared, it's the housing.
New construction, yeah.
Yep.
It's the unknown new construction. It's important that we estimate we balloon that. So, and if we needed more money and we don't balloon it to capture the new construction, it will be unfair to existing taxpayers who will continue to bear the burden that we don't get the money that the new construction is supposed to contribute to the extension. It's kind of like the way I look at tax levy. It's like a scale, right? If one side is light, the other side is going to be heavy. So it's important that we be fair and we provide as much information as possible so that everyone pays a fair amount towards the education of our children here.
Thank you.
It's a great question.
So why levy to cap? I think I mentioned that before, but I can't overstate the fact that because of the key unknown of new construction. That's why we do that. If we under levy, we lose the revenue forever because the base for this year becomes the new base for next year. So if the base is lower for this year, then the base for next year will be artificially low. And the reason why we need the revenue from property tax, we need it to pay for staff, programs and services. We need to fund facility maintenance, which is apropos. We were just talking about long-range facility planning a moment ago. We need to, if possible, build up our reserves because as it was mentioned previously, for 20 straight years, we borrow money just to complete the year. We paid interest for that. And if we have enough taxes, if we do the levy appropriately, we can have some reserve that on a rainy day, we have enough money to be able to weather the storm. And we wouldn't be borrowing money and incurring cost of borrowing too. But just to be clear, the property tax is capped by CPI, not a penny more. So an important factor in property tax system is TIF. which is a process by which an area in a taxing municipality that would not generate growth, but for an intervention of tax increment finances, is used to create increment, provide some investment in an area that encourage development in that area. Now, it normally takes over 23 years for that period to end. But once that period ends, if it's done properly, there'll be an increment that will result in increased property value, and it will lessen the property burden on other taxpayers in the district. Now, I wanted to give an example of the three TIF districts in our taxing area. The first one is the Montgomery Route 30 and 5th. It was established back in 2005. The base tax, when TIF is developed, is frozen at a base EAV. And then any of the increases during the TIF period is actually goes to the TIF district that is used for economic development. After 23 years is over, any increases that resulted after that now goes back to the taxing body.
Yeah, I was saying that percentage looks impressive, but it's not a very impressive number.
But I mean, still, we go from 36,000 to 300.
I don't think that they developed anything there.
So the
On the
next
Montgomery
one,
side. So
it's a
just,
tiny.
it just went up in value just because, not because of development, you know.
Yeah. So the next one will be the Oswego, Maine, and Washington, which interestingly enough, Old Traverse School District building is located in that TIF district. As you can see, that district was established back in 2015, and the base EAV is 6.7 at that time, and now it's grown to 20.5, which is an increment of 13.7 million. Now, if it continues to grow, when that comes up for expiration around 2039, 2040, all the taxing bodies will benefit from the increment from that. And the last one that I put in, the third one here, is the Montgomery Caterpillar, the old Caterpillar facility was established in 2021, and the base EAV rate was 10.2 million. And it's almost double in value, with an increment now of 9.8 million. So I just wanted to show, I know a lot of time people make comments that school districts should be opposed to TIF, but I really think it depends on how well conceived those TIFs are. Some TIFs, if they're well conceived, it benefits, it results in economic development for the municipality. It also results in increased tax for the taxing body, which will overall lessen the overall taxes on all taxpayers in the area. So we are recommending that the board accept and approve the 2025 tentative tax levy as presented, and to authorize the tentative 2025 tax levy public hearing to be held on December 8, 2024. 25 at the next board meeting. Thank you.
Any further
or
questions?
discussion?
I do. In regards to the TIF, and I apologize as you were going through the slide deck, how much revenue is the district losing each year because of the TIF districts?
So if you look at, for example, if we look at the Montgomery TIF, the first one, it has a base EAV of 36,000. Now, if we do the calculation of that, the one that I just did going back here, that shows that for every $100
something like that.
is $5.37. So that is not a significant amount of money that the district was receiving from that. But if you look at the increment has gone up by 325,000.
And then the Oswego, Maine.
Right.
I
So
know that a lot of that was,
well,
our property wasn't collecting tax, so it's kind of hard to.
Right. So to ask how much we're losing would be to look at it from a short-sighted point of view, right? Because if the TIF, the Montgomery Caterpillar TIF, for example, when the base EAV was set, it was $10 million, right? Now it's grown, it's almost double by now. So by the time the TIF expires in 2039, 2040, chances are we may be looking at about $30 to $40 million in taxes that will go back to the tax roll. So there's no way that I see possible.
Yeah,
that I see possible if we didn't establish a TIF there that will get that kind of money.
if I remember the Oswego, Maine and Washington, it was like 10 grand a year. And that's basically, so it's 10 grand a year for 23 years. So that's 230 grand.
Right.
And then we're going to get at year 24, you would get like a big multiple of 230 grand. So
And not only
kind of the
that,
theory.
it also benefits the municipality,
right?
You know, the village of Oswego, because now we have businesses now where people are employed, they have jobs, and you have a blighted area that's just been sitting there that's now being used to generate economic development, to generate, you know, taxes, and the infrastructures that have been built in the area. But for the revenue from the TIF district, I can envision the village having that kind of resources to be able to build the infrastructure improvement that is taking place in that. So even if the business leaves in the future, you have a well-developed infrastructure that'll be attractive for new business to occupy.
Makes sense. Thank you.
All right. Anybody else?
Can you go back to slide 6? So I think it's important to point out that this is just the calculation for basically the school district budget. It doesn't include the bond.
Right.
Bond repayment.
Right.
Like there's another calculation
Right.
for that. And then those two numbers are totaled together and that's what's on the tax bill.
Yeah, the tax bill just doesn't separate it,
Yeah.
which would be nice if we understood which was part of the general obligation funds or bonds and so forth. So, yeah.
Thank you.
So I always say that it's basically 20-25% of your school district portion of the tax bill is for bonds. So.
And one of the key reasons educating children is very labor intensive. It's very labor intensive. It's mostly educators, teachers. 80% of the money goes to pay for teachers and their benefits. It's an investment.
Yeah. So was that 11, 3, 4, and 5?
Yes.
All right, unless there's anything else. All right.
11, 4, and 5.
Public notice, estimated tax levy and truth in taxation resolution. And then next meeting we'll vote. Moving to 11.6, the intergovernmental agreement with Yorkville.
So what we do as a district, we actually reach agreements with other school districts whom, because of the fact that we have a really strong program for special needs students, the schools in the surrounding area, they actually reach agreement with us to place their student in our program. And in return for that, we charge them the actual cost of providing the education to their kids. And we also charge a 3% administrative fee. So what you have there is for a student who's actually domiciled in Yorkville 115, but he's been educated in one of our programs here. We reach an agreement to provide the service to them, the actual cost of providing that service, plus 3% administrative fee. That's the IGA that we're presenting before the board.
And that was through 28, I think, right?
Yes.
And so there's some stability there.
Yes, and we have similar agreements with other districts too. It's a way for us to subsidize some of the cost of special education that we pay internally.
Is this a continuation of an IGA?
Yes.
Yeah.
So it's all the same stuff. Okay.
Yes.
They provide their own transportation?
if we provide transportation, we'll charge them for that too. So yeah, we don't carry any of the cost because they do not, they're not our residents.
Thank you, Mr. Questions?
Do we do the IEPs? Like, does our staff create the IEPs, or is it the Yorkville staff?
Because the student is our student while they're at 308. So we collaborate with certain administration and staff at the partner schools to keep them updated on the IEP, but we discussed the services that we continue to provide those students based on their goals.
I have a question, Dr. Yvette. So does this mean that we are keeping the DHH program until 2028?
We're always keeping the DHH program. This is just in relation to that we service Yorkville students. In addition to several other students, we needed to update the IGA with Yorkville School District.
Well, I only ask that because I'm sure you're probably aware there's a lot of communication about that program, right? What's happening to it. So I think it's intentional at this point as we're kind of going over this agreement, and it does bring up the DHH, right? How it's going to be obviously here in our district and how we'll continue to move forward with it.
Yeah, it's always important to recognize that we have to ensure we have the staff to support our students and those students that we partner with neighboring districts to support.
Thank you.
Anything else? 11-7, 2026 school maintenance project grant.
Thank you. This is a grant that the state of Illinois actually provides to every school district that applies for. And I think in the past, we never did apply for it. So over the last 3 years, we've applied for it. Essentially, you have a maintenance project that you do. You put up $50,000. The state will match that $50,000 with you. It's as easy money as you can find for $50,000. So the last 2 years, we've done it. We've applied. We've been awarded. We've used it for things that we would have done anyway. It's just a way to get a 50% subsidies on maintenance cost. So we're applying for it again for the third year in a row, and that's what this is.
We have to vote on that?
Yes.
Yes.
The board, the board has to authorize it.
I feel good with this. Anybody have questions? No. All right. 11-8, state waiver for driver's education fees.
Okay.
So currently our driver's education course fee is $400. In order to charge $400, we need to reapply for the state waiver. The state currently caps us at $250 under board approval. But with our transition from temporary teachers and part-time teachers to full-time OEA members, our current cost of driver's education does exceed both what we collect in course fees and the driver's education reimbursement that we receive from the state. So at the next meeting, we would like to hold the public hearing in order to then apply for the renewal of the state waiver.
Questions?
You know, just off the top of my head, I mean, we're still seeing demand for the program. Obviously, we have the teachers, they're full-time, so.
We are still seeing course demand, and our costs are still lower than if you went to a private facility in the area.
Okay. Anybody else? Okay. 11-9, board policies for first grade.
All right. Thank you again, Dr. Kincaid. I know the
Yeah,
policy committee.
Can you go over each one in detail, please?
I would be happy to. I know this is the most exciting time of our evening.
The only thing I would, can I just, when, we get the summary, which I appreciate. I don't know, is there any way to give sections like, or identify which ones are more than Press Plus, like that have substantive changes, so we can like focus more on, because there's a lot to read.
There definitely is a lot to read. We're going to highlight some of those substantive changes and the changes that need to be agreed upon by the board, and we can look at
just in the. I'm not asking for
highlighting.
like any.
And
absolutely.
keep in mind, I'm sorry, keep in mind that most of the changes are in line with what press
Oh,
indicates.
yeah. And I see sometimes
It's rare
it's
that we
just-
get very creative.
It's just like referencing a different statute, or like.
correct.
So.
So a lot of the changes, our Board of Education Policy Committee reviewed Press Issue 120. So a lot of the changes that are coming tonight are really in alignment with that issue, but there are two policies that we really need to dive a little bit deeper into tonight. So overall, there are many, the changes are either legal references, but there have been some changes in school code. So if you look at the red line version, you'll see some changes regarding student fees, the annual financial review, the AFR, curriculum, safety, racism-free schools law, and the Illinois Community Reinvestment Act. What I would like to draw your attention to first, though, is policy 660, curriculum content. So there has been quite a few updates, some related to our health curriculum in terms of drug and alcohol abuse and prevention. Also, some things in terms of our health curriculum with human ecology, health, growth, and development. Some also our internet safety. But if you take a look at, we have one choice to make, and it really based on the Irish famine. So we have the ability to add in the Irish famine into our curriculum board policy. In conversation, as you can see, the curriculum content that we're already required to have is elements 1 through 29. In conversation at the board policy committee, the default from Press Plus is to not include it, and there was support in the committee to go with the default and to not include another element that is required to our current board policy. So that is the first one that I would like to draw attention to. The second element that we have to decide on is in board policy 6210. This is in terms of how we adopt our curriculum materials. So the decision that we would have to make is currently we adopt what we consider our core instructional materials, so textbooks and licenses. Press is asking us if we want to also include all instructional materials. That is currently not our practice. Our practice is all core materials. So the discussion at the policy committee was to still maintain current practices. So anything that would be any core instructional text or resource. So for example, we have some of our grade levels where it's not a textbook, but it is an online textbook. So that would be still, even though it's a license and not a physical book, we would still be bringing forth for board approval all core materials. So those are the two things that we have to submit to press a decision. And the recommendation from the policy committee is to, again, in 660, go with the default to not include the Irish famine above and beyond the changes that are required through school code. And in 6-10 to, yes, essentially keep our current practice as is. So all core instructional materials would come to the board for approval, but not all instructional materials. Any questions?
No,
No question.
I guess.
No, I'm good.
All right.
Thank you, Dr. Kincaid.
All right, action items. 12.1. Approval of bills for payment. Can I have a motion, please?
I make a motion to authorize the payment of bills in the amount of $6,532,091.25 as presented.
Second.
Any discussion?
Mr. Saron?
Aye.
Miss C?
Aye.
Dr. Martin?
Aye.
Miss Wenmuth?
Aye.
Dr. Murillo?
Aye.
Miss Robinson?
Aye.
Dr. Polak?
Aye.
Motion passes 7-0. Action item 12.2, approval of English 1 novels. Can I have a motion, please?
I make a motion to approve the two new proposed novels for English 1 and Honors English 1 as discussed and presented.
Second.
Any discussion?
Great books.
Dr. Polak?
Aye.
Miss C?
Aye.
Dr. Martin?
Aye.
Miss Wenmuth?
Aye.
Dr. Murillo?
Aye.
Miss Robinson?
Aye.
Mr. Saron?
Aye. Motion passes 7-0. Action item 12.3, board policies for second reading and approval. Can I have a motion, please?
I make a motion to approve Board Policy Section 4 Operational Services 4:90, Section 5 General Personnel 5:270, Section 7 Students 7:40, 7:325 as discussed and presented.
Second.
Any discussion? All right.
Dr. Murillo?
Aye.
Miss Robinson?
Aye.
Dr. Martin?
Aye.
Miss Wenmuth?
Aye.
Mr. Saron?
Aye.
Dr. Polak?
Aye.
Miss C?
Aye.
Motion passes 7-0. 12.4, action item, approval of renewal of milestone support. Can I have a motion, please?
I make a motion to approve renewal of milestone support.
Second.
Any discussion?
Miss Wenmuth?
Aye.
Miss C?
Aye.
Mr. Saron?
Aye.
Miss Robinson?
Aye.
Dr. Polak?
Aye.
Dr. Murillo?
Aye.
Dr. Martin?
Aye.
Motion passes 7-0. 12.5, action item, approval of destruction of audio records. Can I have a motion, please?
I make a motion to approve the destruction of the audio recordings of the closed session meetings from November 6, 2023 through April 22nd, 2024.
Second.
Any discussion?
Mr. Saron?
Aye.
Miss Robinson?
Aye.
Dr. Martin?
Aye.
Miss C?
Aye.
Dr. Murillo?
Aye.
Miss Wenmuth?
Aye.
Dr. Polak?
Aye.
Motion passes 7-0. 12.6, action item, approval of the release of closed session minutes. Can I have a motion, please?
I make a motion to make available no closed session minutes at this time due to a determination that they require continued confidentiality.
Second.
Any discussion?
Dr. Martin?
Aye.
Miss Wenmuth?
Aye.
Mr. Saron?
Aye.
Miss Robinson?
Aye.
Dr. Polak?
Aye.
Miss C?
Aye.
Dr. Murillo?
Aye.
Motion passes 7-0. 12.7, action item, approval of personnel report. Can I have a motion, please?
I make a motion to approve the personnel report as discussed and presented.
Second.
Any discussion?
Miss C?
Aye.
Dr. Martin?
Aye.
Dr. Murillo?
Aye.
Dr. Polak?
Aye.
Mr. Saron?
Aye.
Ms. Wenmuth? Aye. Ms. Robinson?
Aye.
Motion passes 7-0. Can I have a motion to adjourn? All in favor?
I make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Aye.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.